Kang Mu-hyeok's eyes snap open, and he's already gasping for air like a man pulled from a grave. His hands fly to his chest. No wound, no blood, no shattered ribs. The last thing he remembers is Mang Do-jun's blade carving through him under the harvest moon. He died at 30, surrounded by the corpses of everyone he ever loved. Now he's staring at the wooden ceiling of his childhood room. His hands are smooth, uncalloused. The hands of a 17-year-old disciple who has never held a sword in real combat. He bolts upright, sheets flying, and scans every corner of the cramped quarters. The training schedule is still pinned to the wall, dated the morning of the Harvest Moon Festival. The festival that hasn't happened yet. The night everything burned hasn't happened yet. His heart slams against his ribs as 30 years of memories crash into a teenage brain all at once. The raiders pouring through the eastern gate like black water. Elder Jang's cold smile as the watchmen collapsed with poison in their veins. His sister's face, pale and terrified, as the flames climbed higher. He died trying to reach her. And now he's back. Our boy sits there for a solid minute, breathing like he just sprinted up the 9 peaks, trying to separate past from present. It isn't a dream. The grief is too sharp, the rage too specific. The image of Mang Do-jun's sneering face too damn clear. He pinches his arm hard enough to bruise, and the pain is real. This room is real. The date is real. The Harvest Moon Festival is tonight, and if he does nothing, everyone he knows will be dead before sunrise. He throws himself out of bed and nearly brains himself on the doorframe because his body doesn't move the way his 30-year-old instincts expected. To 17-year-old legs, 17-year-old reflexes, and the muscle memory of a dead man who fought for 3 decades. It's disorienting as hell. He doesn't have time to recalibrate. Every heartbeat brings the massacre close. He yanks on his outer robe and bursts into the corridor, already calculating. The poison goes into the evening meal for the night watch. That's the first domino. Elder Jang oversees the watch rotation personally, which means Mu-hyeok has maybe 6 hours before the old snake makes his move. The raiders hit at moonrise, synchronized with Jang's signal from the eastern gate tower. In the original timeline, Mu-hyeok was sitting at the festival banquet when the first war horn sounded. He was too far from the armory, too slow to react, too trusting of the elders, who were already in on the slaughter. Not this time. His bare feet slap against the wooden floor as he sprints toward his sister's quarters, ignoring the startled looks from servants and junior disciples. Kang Su-yeon's door is still painted with the little lotus blossoms she insisted on when she was 12. He doesn't knock, just shoves it open, and finds her sitting cross-legged on her mat, meditating with her training sword across her knees. She's 15, small for her age, with the same sharp jawline their mother had. In his memories, she's lying in a pool of blood under a burning pavilion. The image slams into him so hard he has to brace himself against the doorframe. Su-yeon's eyes fly open. She's never seen her brother look at her like that. Like he's seeing a ghost. Like he's already mourning her. He crosses the room in 3 strides and grabs her shoulders. His voice comes out raw, almost a growl. He tells her the clan is in danger. Tonight, before moonrise, the eastern gate will fall, and everyone she knows will die. Su-yeon stares at him like he's lost his mind. She asks if he's been drinking, or if one of the senior disciples hit him too hard during sparring. He doesn't let go, just keeps talking, faster now, the words tumbling out in a flood. He describes the raiders exactly. Mang Do-jun's crimson armor, the curved blades his men favor, the way they howl like wolves when they breach a wall. He tells her Elder Jang has been feeding information to the enemy for months, that the night watch will be poisoned, that the eastern gate will open from the inside. She's never heard her brother speak with this kind of authority. This isn't the anxious, hesitant boy who could barely hold eye contact with the elders. This is a man who has watched civilization burn and isn't about to let it happen again. Su-yeon's hand tightens on her training sword. She asks how he knows any of this. He can't tell her the truth. Not yet. Not when every second matters. So he gives her the only answer that might work. He tells her he overheard something he shouldn't have, that he's been watching Elder Jang for weeks, that he has proof stashed near the armory. She doesn't fully believe him. He can see it in the way her brow furrows. But she's also never seen him this certain about anything in his life. And the fear in his eyes is real, in a way that can't be faked. She asks what he needs her to do. He tells her to wake the junior disciples she trusts, arm herself with a real blade, and barricade the women's quarters until he returns. Under no circumstances is she to go anywhere near the eastern gate or the main banquet hall. She nods, already pulling on her boots. Good enough. He's out the door before she can ask another question. The clan council hall sits at the heart of the compound, an imposing structure with curved eaves and pillars, carved with the history of the Hwasan clan. Mu-hyeok barrels through the main entrance and finds exactly what he expected. Elder Jang holding court with 3 senior disciples, discussing festival arrangements like it's any other day. The old man's white beard is immaculately trimmed, his robes pristine, his smile practiced and warm. He's been betraying these people for years, and nobody sees it. One of the senior disciples moves to block Mu-hyeok's path, but our boy doesn't slow down. He plants himself in front of Elder Jang and says the clan is under threat. The raiders are coming tonight, and they need to mobilize every able-bodied fighter immediately. Elder Jang's expression flickers for just a fraction of a second. Then the warm smile returns, and he chuckles like Mu-hyeok is a child who's had a nightmare. He says the boy has been training too hard, that the Harvest Moon Festival is a time of celebration, not paranoia. He gestures for one of the disciples to escort Mu-hyeok back to his quarters to rest. But Mu-hyeok isn't looking at the old man's smile. He's looking at his eyes. And in the moment before the mask slid back into place, he saw it. Cold. Calculating. The gaze of a predator who just realized his prey might be onto him. Elder Jang knows something. Elder Jang is already planning. And if Mu-hyeok pushes too hard right now, the old snake will accelerate the timetable and kill him before the raiders even arrive. So he does the hardest thing he's ever done. He backs down. He lowers his head, mumbles an apology, and lets the senior disciple steer him toward the door. His fists are clenched so tight, his nails draw blood from his palms. But he's learned, in 30 years of war, that sometimes you have to retreat to win. The moment he's out of sight of the council hall, he changes direction. No more warnings, no more trying to convince people who won't listen. He's going to do this himself. The clan's defenses are a joke. The Eastern Watchtower is understaffed. The armory is unguarded during festivals, and half the warriors who should be on patrol will be drinking rice wine at the banquet. Nobody expects an attack because nobody has attacked the Hwasan clan in living memory. They've grown soft, complacent. And that's exactly why Elder Jang chose this night. But Mu-hyeok knows the raiders' approach path because he died watching them swarm over the walls. He knows exactly which section of the eastern palisade is weakest, the 4th post from the gate, where the wood is old and the supports are rotted. He knows the raiders will send a vanguard of 12 men through the drainage culvert beneath the south wall an hour before the main assault. And he knows Elder Jang will be standing at the top of the eastern gate tower, lantern in hand, waiting to signal the all-clear to Meng Do-jun. All of it is burned into his memory like a brand. He reaches the armory and finds the door locked, standard procedure during festivals. But the lock is a cheap iron thing that a determined man with a rock can break in about 10 seconds. He doesn't hesitate. The lock shatters. The door swings open, and he's inside. Racks of swords, spears, bows, and coils of rope line the walls. He grabs what he needs, a curved blade that's lighter than his 30-year-old hands remember, but will do the job. A quiver of arrows he won't be able to shoot with any accuracy in this body, and a length of oil-soaked rope. The oil is the key. It'll burn hot and fast, even on old wood. He hauls everything to the eastern palisade and gets to work. The 4th post groans when he tests it with his shoulder, just like he remembers. He wraps the oil-soaked rope around the base of the post and ties it off, then strings a tripwire across the approach path at ankle height. It won't stop the raiders, but it'll slow them down and give him a few extra seconds to react. Next, he climbs the watchtower, empty, because the assigned sentry is already at the banquet, and positions himself where Elder Jang is supposed to stand. From here, he can see the entire eastern approach, the moonlit fields stretching toward the dark tree line where Meng Do-jun's wolves will emerge. He can also see the exact spot where Elder Jang will stand to betray them all. Not if Mu-hyeok gets there first. The sun is sinking lower now, painting the sky in shades of blood and fire. He has maybe 2 hours before the first wave hits. He spends those 2 hours in frantic motion, moving supplies, checking sightlines, reinforcing the gate with whatever scrap wood he can find. His 17-year-old body is screaming at him to stop, but his 30-year-old will keeps it moving. Every board he nails down, every arrow he positions, every trap he rigs is a middle finger to the future he already lived through. He won't let it happen again. He can't. As dusk settles over the compound, he makes one final stop, a hidden alcove behind the meditation garden where the junior disciples stash contraband, letters and stolen wine. He scratches a message into the dirt floor with the tip of his blade. Eastern Gate. Sundown. Trust no elder. If Soo-yeon listened to him, she'll find this. If she didn't, he pushes the thought away and climbs back to his perch. The first torch flickers to life in the raiders' camp, deep in the tree line. Mu-hyeok's hand tightens on his sword. The massacre is coming. But this time, he's ready. The raiders don't announce themselves. They melt out of the tree line like shadows. 25 men in dark cloth, moving low and fast across the moonlit field. Mu-hyeok watches them from the eastern watchtower, his hand steady on the curved blade. His 17-year-old heart is hammering, but his 30-year-old mind is ice. He knows exactly what they're about to do. The vanguard splits off first, 12 men peeling toward the south wall, aiming for the drainage culvert. Just like he remembered. He doesn't stop them. That trap isn't for them. The main body keeps coming, angling straight for the eastern palisade. And that's when he sees the leader, a scarred man with a notched blade, the same bastard who beheaded Old Master Yoon in the original timeline. Mu-hyeok's grip tightens. Not tonight. The first raider hits the tripwire at a dead sprint. The rope snaps taut at ankle height, and the man goes down hard, face first into packed earth, swords skittering into the dark. Two more stumble over him before they realize what's happened. By then, Mu-hyeok is already moving. He drops from the watchtower, lands on the catwalk with a grunt, and hauls on the release cord he rigged an hour ago. The oil-soaked rope around the fourth post ignites as he drags it across a flint striker nailed to the support beam. Fire erupts. The old rotted post goes up like a torch, flames clawing 20 feet into the night sky. Suddenly, the entire eastern approach is lit up like midday. Every raider is exposed. Every shadow is gone. And the element of surprise, the one thing Mang Do-jun's wolves bank on, evaporates in a column of orange fire. The scarred leader snarls something. Mu-hyeok can't hear the words, but he knows the tone. It's the sound of a plan falling apart. Up in the compound, the fire does exactly what he hoped. Warriors who were halfway through their third cup of rice wine see the flames, grab their swords, and run toward the eastern wall. They're drunk and disorganized, but they're moving. That's more than they did in the original timeline. Back then, the first they knew of the attack was a blade through their throat. Mu-hyeok knocks an arrow. His 17-year-old arms don't have the muscle memory he needs. The draw is shaky, the aim uncertain. He doesn't need to hit a kill shot. He just needs to buy time. The arrow flies wild, missing the scarred leader by 3 feet, but it slams into the shoulder of the man behind him. The raider screams and drops. Close enough. The Hwasun warriors reach the palisade, 6 of them, senior disciples who trained under Master Yoon for a decade. They see the raiders scaling the wall, and they don't hesitate. Steel meets steel. The eastern wall becomes a slaughterhouse. Mu-hyeok drops the bow, useless in his hands anyway, and draws his curved blade. He doesn't join the fight on the wall. He runs the other way, because he knows something the others don't. This attack is a distraction. The real threat is already inside. The drainage culvert beneath the south wall is a narrow stone pipe wide enough for a man to crawl through if he sheds his armor. In the original timeline, the vanguard came through it and opened the south gate from within. The clan never stood a chance. Tonight, Mu-hyeok is waiting for them. Crouches in the shadow of the meditation garden wall, 20 feet from the culvert's interior exit, and listens. Boots scrape on wet stone. A voice, low and rough, the vanguard leader, counting men as they emerge. 2, 3. Mu-hyeok doesn't move. 5, 6. He counts with them. 8, 9, 10, 11. The 12th man crawls out last, a hulking brute with a warhammer strapped across his back. He's the one Mu-hyeok needs. In the original life, that hammer caved in the south gate's crossbar in 3 swings. Without him, the gate holds. Mu-hyeok steps out of the shadow. The vanguard freezes. For one perfect second, 12 hardened killers stare at a 17-year-old boy with a curved sword. And every one of them hesitates. They expected no resistance. That's the mistake. Mu-hyeok doesn't attack them. He attacks the ground. His blade slashes through the support rope of a stacked lumber pile he positioned against the garden wall 3 hours ago. The logs come down in an avalanche of noise and splintering wood, crashing across the culvert exit and sealing it shut. The vanguard is trapped between the collapse and the inner compound wall. Nowhere to run except forward. And forward is where Mu-hyeok wants them. The hulking brute roars and charges, warhammer swinging in a wide arc. Mu-hyeok ducks it. His 17-year-old body is faster than he remembers. No old injuries, no stiff joints, just lean muscle and quick reflexes. The hammer craters the ground where he stood a heartbeat ago. He slashes the brute's knee, not deep, but enough. The big man stumbles. Mu-hyeok is already past him, running full tilt toward the south gate. Behind him, the vanguard scrambles to organize. Shouts, curses, the scrape of drawn steel. He doesn't look back. The south gate is a massive iron-banded structure, crossbarred with a beam of oak thicker than a man's thigh. 2 guards should be stationed here. Tonight there's only one, a junior disciple named Han-sol, barely 16, who looks like he's about to vomit when he sees Mu-hyeok sprinting toward him with a bloody sword. Mu-hyeok doesn't waste time explaining. He points at the crossbar and shouts the only thing that will work. Raiders inside the walls. Hold the gate! Han Sol's fear turns to steel. The kid plants his feet, grips his spear, and braces. Good kid. Mu-hyeok turns to face the vanguard. They're coming now. 11 men. The brute limping at the rear, weapons gleaming in the torchlight. 11 against 2. He's had worse odds. He survived a 30-year war against these exact bastards. He knows their formations. He knows their tells. First Raider lunges with a short spear. Mu-hyeok sidesteps, catches the shaft under his arm, and drives his blade into the man's throat. 1 down. The second swings a dowel blade at his head. He ducks, slashes across the Raider's ribs. 2 down. But there are 9 more, and his 17-year-old lungs are already burning. The third Raider is smarter. He feints high, then kicks Mu-hyeok's knee. Pain explodes through his leg. He staggers. Han Sol screams and thrusts his spear, driving the fourth Raider back. Mu-hyeok uses the opening to gut the third man with an upward slash. 3 down. His arms are getting heavy. His breath is coming in ragged gasps. 30-year-old technique is fighting against 17-year-old stamina, and it's a losing battle. The brute with the warhammer shoves through his comrades, murder in his eyes. He raises the hammer. Mu-hyeok knows he can't block it. That thing will shatter his blade and his arms with it. He dives sideways. The hammer smashes into the gate, and the whole structure groans. 1 swing. That was 1 swing. 2 more and the crossbar splinters. The brute raises the hammer again. And that's when the arrow takes him through the eye. He drops like a felled ox. Mu-hyeok spins. Up on the watchtower he just abandoned. Silhouetted against the fire still roaring on the eastern wall, stands Yoon So-yeon. He's got a bow in her hands and a quiver on her back, and her eyes are burning with cold fury. She found the message. Mu-hyeok doesn't have time to feel relief. So-yeon fires again. The 5th Raider drops. The 6th. The 7th tries to charge her position and catches an arrow in the chest. Suddenly it's 4 against 2, and those 4 are backing toward the culvert collapse, realizing they've walked into a death trap. Mu-hyeok straightens up, sword dripping. His knee is screaming. His lungs are on fire. But he's grinning, because for the first time since he woke up in his childhood bed, the future is shifting. The vanguard is broken. The south gate holds. And up on the eastern wall, the Hwasan warriors are pushing the main assault back. He can hear the clash of steel, the shouts of victory. Massacre is falling apart. Then he sees it. A lantern, moving in a slow, deliberate circle, 3 times clockwise, at the top of the eastern gate tower, the exact spot where Elder Jang is supposed to be coordinating the defense. Mu-hyeok's blood goes cold. The signal. Even now, with the attack exposed and the raiders in retreat, the old snake is still playing his part. The lantern swings again, 3 times counterclockwise. An answer flickers from the tree line. A single torch, held high, then extinguished. Mu-hyeok knows what that means. Meng Do-jun has seen the signal, and he's coming personally. The first wave was never the real attack. It was a probe, a test, and the test just told the Raider Warlord exactly where the weak point is. Mu-hyeok looks up at the gate tower, at the shadowy figure holding the lantern. From this distance, he can't make out Elder Jang's face, but he doesn't need to. He knows what that cold, calculating gaze looks like. He saw it in the council hall 2 hours ago. So-yeon drops down from the watchtower, lands beside him, her bow still drawn. She's not looking at the tree line. She's looking at the gate tower. She saw the signal. She turns to Mu-hyeok, and in her eyes, he sees the same question burning. What do we do? Mu-hyeok wipes blood from his blade and starts walking toward the eastern gate. He doesn't run. Running would draw attention, and right now attention is the last thing he wants. He moves through the chaos of the compound, past wounded warriors being dragged to the infirmary, past junior disciples hauling water buckets to douse the fire on the palisade, past the bodies of raiders being piled against the wall. Nobody stops him. Nobody asks where he's going. Everyone is too busy surviving. So-yeon follows in his shadow, silent as a ghost. The eastern gate tower is a 3-story stone structure, the tallest point in the compound. The stairs are narrow and winding, designed to be defended by a single man. Mu-hyeok climbs them slowly, his injured knee protesting every step. At the top, the door to the signal platform is half open. Lantern light spills through the crack. He pushes it open. Elder Jang stands with his back to the door, lantern in hand, staring out at the tree line. The old man doesn't turn around. "I wondered when you'd come," he says. "You know more than you should, boy." Mu-hyeok's sword comes up. So-yeon draws her bowstring back, and Elder Jang finally turns, his face lit from below by the lantern's glow. He's smiling. "You're too late," he says. Warlord is already on his way, and when he arrives, there won't be a clan left to save. The lantern drops from his hand. It shatters on the stone floor. And somewhere in the darkness beyond the walls, a horn sounds. Low, long, and hungry. Mangdo-jun is coming. Mu-hyeok doesn't move. The shattered lantern still flickers on the stone floor between them. Elder Jang's smile doesn't waver, even with Seo-yeon's arrow aimed at his throat. He's been caught red-handed. The horn is still echoing, and the old man looks like he just won. Mu-hyeok's grip tightens on his blade. His knee is screaming. His arms are lead, but none of that matters right now. "You think that horn scares me?" Mu-hyeok says. Elder Jang tilts his head. "It should," the old man replies. "Your little traps bought you an hour, maybe 2. Mangdo-jun has 300 men. Mu-hyeok steps closer. The lantern flame is dying, shadows crawling up the walls. So-yeon keeps her bow drawn, her eyes locked on the traitor. "And you," Mu-hyeok says. "You've been feeding him information for months." Elder Jang's expression flickers, just for a heartbeat. Then the cold mask slides back into place. "That's a serious accusation, boy." "It's not an accusation." Mu-hyeok's voice is flat. "It's a fact." He gestures at the shattered lantern, the signal platform, the tree line where the horn just sounded. "You just signaled the enemy from the highest point in the compound. Everyone saw it." Elder Jang spreads his hands. "I was signaling for reinforcements." The neighboring clans are 3 days' ride away. Mu-hyeok cuts him off. "And you signaled the tree line, not the road." The old man's jaw tightens. So-yeon's bowstring creaks. "Keep talking," she says. "Give me a reason." Elder Jang looks at her, then back at Mu-hyeok. Something shifts in his eyes. Not fear, calculation. "Your father trusted me," he says slowly. "The council trusts me. And you're a 17-year-old disciple who's been acting strange all day." He gestures at the chaos below. "Who's to say you didn't signal the raiders yourself? Who's to say you're not the traitor?" So-yeon's arrow doesn't waver. "I've known him since we were children," she says. "Try again." "The children grow up," Elder Jang says. "They change. They make deals in the dark." He looks directly at Mu-hyeok. "How did you know about the attack, boy? How did you know the exact hour, the exact path, the exact number of men?" It's a good question. Mu-hyeok can feel Seo-yeon's gaze flick toward him. He's felt that doubt all day. In the council hall, in Soo-yeon's eyes, in every warrior who watched him rig traps they'd never seen before. He can't tell them the truth. Nobody would believe he regressed from a 30-year-old corpse. So he does the only thing he can. He leans in close, until he can smell the old man's sweat and the oil from the shattered lantern. "You've been meeting a raider scout at the abandoned shrine behind the eastern ridge," Mu-hyeok says quietly. "Every 3 days, at midnight, you leave your correspondence in a hollow stone beneath the altar." Elder Jang's face goes white. "The last letter," Mu-hyeok continues, "was 3 nights ago. You told them the night watch rotation had changed. You told them which guards would be on duty tonight. You told them the signal." He steps back. His blade comes up. "And you signed it with your personal seal." The silence hangs like a blade. Seo-yeon's breathing has gone shallow. Elder Jang's hands are trembling. Not with fear, but with rage. "Lies," he hisses. "Then you won't mind if we check the shrine." Mu-hyeok turns to So-yeon. "Take 2 warriors. The hollow stone is under the altar's northeast corner. Bring back whatever you find." She hesitates. "I'm not leaving you alone with him." "Then tie him up first." She doesn't lower the bow, but she nods. "Han-sol," she calls down the stairs. "Get up here, bring rope." The junior disciple's footsteps pound up the tower steps. He bursts through the door, spear in hand, and stops dead when he sees the scene. Elder Jang against the wall. So-yeon's arrow at his throat. Mu-hyeok's blade dripping. "What?" "Rope," Mu-hyeok says. "Now." Han-sol doesn't ask questions. He pulls a coil from his belt and binds the old man's wrists behind his back, tight enough to bite into the skin. Elder Jang doesn't resist. He just watches Mu-hyeok with those cold, calculating eyes. "You're making a mistake," he says. "When the council hears about this, the council is meeting in the main hall right now." Mu-hyeok sheathes his blade. "And I'm going to tell them everything." The walk to the main hall feels longer than it should. Mu-hyeok's knee throbs with every step. The adrenaline is wearing off, and his 17-year-old body is screaming for rest he can't afford. Behind him, Han-sol and 2 other disciples drag Elder Jang. So-yeon has already left for the shrine with a small squad, her bow still strung, her face set in grim lines. The compound is chaos. Fires still burn on the eastern palisade. Wounded warriors groan on stretchers. Junior disciples haul water and bandages. The smell of smoke and blood hangs thick in the air. But the walls are still standing. The gate still holds. And the raiders' first wave is broken. It's not enough. Mangdo-jun is still coming, but it's a start. The clan council hall is packed. Every elder who isn't on the walls is here, their faces lit by flickering braziers. Patriarch Kang's empty seat looms at the head of the table. Elder Jin, the oldest and most respected of the council, rises when Mu-hyeok enters. What is the meaning of this? His voice is sharp. We're in the middle of an attack, and you drag an elder in chains? Mu-hyeok doesn't bow. I bring evidence of treason. The hall goes silent. Elder Jang is shoved forward, his bound wrists visible to everyone. His robes are stained with lantern oil. His face is a mask of cold dignity. This boy attacked me, Elder Jang says calmly. He's been acting erratically all day. Paranoia, delusions. He's a danger to the clan. I have evidence. Mu-hyeok's voice doesn't waver. Elder Jin's gaze moves between them. What evidence? Mu-hyeok steps forward. Elder Jang has been communicating with the raiders for months. He's been feeding them our patrol schedules, our guard rotations, and our weak points. Tonight, he signaled them from the eastern gate tower. Half the compound saw it. Murmurs ripple through the council. Elder Jang shakes his head slowly, like a disappointed teacher. Lies. I was signaling for reinforcements. The boy is confused. You were signaling the tree line. Mu-hyeok doesn't take the bait. And I have proof, real proof, not just my word. He turns to face the council. 3 nights ago, Elder Jang left a letter at the abandoned shrine behind the eastern ridge. It's hidden in a hollow stone beneath the altar. Un So-yeon is retrieving it now. Elder Jang laughs, a dry, brittle sound. A convenient piece of evidence that hasn't arrived yet. How do we know you didn't plant it yourself? I've been preparing the compound's defenses all day. Mu-hyeok's voice is ice. Ask anyone. When exactly would I have ridden to the shrine and back? Elder Jin frowns. The boy has a point. His movements have been accounted for since noon. Elder Jang's expression doesn't change, but his bound hands clench behind his back. This is absurd, he says. I've served this clan for 40 years. My loyalty has never been questioned. Until now. The hall falls silent again. Elder Jin strokes his beard slowly, his weathered face unreadable. We will wait for the evidence, he says. If it exists, we will judge it fairly. If it doesn't, his eyes settle on Mu-hyeok. False accusation of an elder carries severe consequences. Mu-hyeok meets his gaze. I know. The wait is agony. Mu-hyeok stands in the corner of the hall, his injured knee throbbing, his mind racing through every possible outcome. If So-yeon finds the letters, the council has to act. But Elder Jang has allies. Decades of favors and connections. The old snake didn't survive this long by being stupid, and Mangdo-jun is on his way. Every minute they spend arguing is a minute the raiders are getting closer. Then the door bursts open. So-yeon strides in, her bow slung across her back. In her hands, a thick bundle of papers wrapped in oilcloth. She drops them on the council table. Found them exactly where he said, she says. Hollow stone. Northeast corner. Still fresh. Elder Jang's composure cracks. Just for a second. Just a flicker of panic before the mask slams back down. Elder Jin picks up the bundle, unwraps the oilcloth, and starts reading. Hall is so quiet, Mu-hyeok can hear the braziers crackle. 1 minute passes. Then 2. Elder Jin's face goes from neutral to grim. He looks up. This is Elder Jang's handwriting, his personal seal, and detailed information about our defenses that only a council member could know. He throws the papers on the table. It's a complete record of his betrayal. The council erupts. Elder Jang doesn't try to run. His bound hands are shaking, but his voice is steady. Forgery, he says. Anyone can carve a seal. The boy planned this from the start. He's been acting strange all day. He knew things he shouldn't know. He's the real traitor, and he's framing me to cover his tracks. Some of the elders hesitate. Mu-hyeok can see it in their faces. Doubt. Uncertainty. Old loyalties warring with new evidence. How did you know where to find these letters? Elder Jin asks, turning to Mu-hyeok. The question he's been dreading. Because the truth is impossible. The lie has to be good enough to survive scrutiny. I overheard him, Mu-hyeok says. 3 nights ago, I couldn't sleep, so I was walking the grounds. I saw Elder Jang leaving the compound after midnight. I followed him to the shrine. I saw him place the letters. Elder Jang's laugh is harsh. You followed me? A 17-year-old disciple followed a supreme-level martial artist through the forest at night, and I didn't notice. It's a fair point, and Mu-hyeok knows it. I stayed downwind, he says. I know the terrain better than anyone. I grew up hunting those ridges. Elder Jin studies him for a long moment. What else did you see? I saw him meet a raider scout, a man with a scar across his throat. They spoke for several minutes. I couldn't hear the words, but I saw the handoff. Elder Jang goes still. The scar across the throat. That detail wasn't in any letter. It's not something Mu-hyeok could have guessed or planted. And Elder Jang knows it. That's a lie, the old man says, but his voice has lost its confidence. Elder Jin picks up the letters again. The evidence is clear. Elder Jang, you are stripped of your position and placed under arrest pending full trial. He gestures to the guards. Take him to the holding cells. If he tries to escape, kill him. The guards move forward. Elder Jang doesn't resist. He lets them grab his arms, lets them drag him toward the door. But as he passes Mu-hyeok, he stops. His lips curl into something that isn't quite a smile. You think you've won, he whispers. But you don't understand. The warlord isn't just coming for the clan. His eyes are flat and dead. He's coming for you, specifically. He knows your name. He knows what you did tonight. Then the guards pull him away. Mu-hyeok stands frozen in the middle of the hall. His name. Mang Do-jun knows his name. In the original timeline, he was just another corpse. Just another disciple slaughtered in the chaos. But now he's the one who stopped the vanguard, the one who exposed the traitor, the one who burned the eastern approach. He's made himself a target. And Mang Do-jun doesn't just kill his targets, he breaks them. Seo-yeon appears at his side, her hand on his shoulder. Hey, you okay? Mu-hyeok blinks. The hall comes back into focus. I'm fine. You're a terrible liar. I know. Elder Jin approaches, his expression still grim. The council owes you a debt, Mu-hyeok. You've saved many lives tonight. But the warlord is still coming. We've got maybe an hour before his main force hits our walls. What do you know about him? Mu-hyeok closes his eyes. He knows everything. He's seen Mang Do-jun fight. He's seen the blood demon arts tear through master-level warriors like paper. He's seen the warlord's cruelty, his patience, his hunger. And he knows that nothing they have inside these walls can stop him. Not yet. He's a supreme-level martial artist, Mu-hyeok says quietly. He uses the blood demon arts, a forbidden technique that lets him absorb the chi of anyone he kills. The more he fights, the stronger he gets. The elders exchange glances. How do you know this? Elder Jin asks. Mu-hyeok doesn't answer. Doesn't have to, because at that moment the horn sounds again. Closer now. Much closer. And this time, it's not just one horn, it's dozens. The warlord's army has arrived. Seo-yeon grabs her bow. The elders scramble to their feet, and Mu-hyeok limps toward the door, his injured knees screaming, his heart pounding, his mind already racing through every scrap of future knowledge he has left. The massacre isn't over. It's just beginning. The horns are still echoing off the peaks when Mu-hyeok reaches the eastern wall. His knee screams with every step, but he doesn't stop. Watchtower is chaos. Wounded warriors being dragged down, fresh fighters scrambling up, arrows flying in both directions. He limps up the ladder, one hand on the rail, the other gripping his curved blade. The view from the top stops him cold. Torches stretch across the valley floor like a river of fire. 300 raiders at least, maybe more, moving in formation toward the eastern palisade. And at the center of that river, riding a black horse the size of a war ox, is Mang Do-jun. Mu-hyeok recognizes him instantly. The same broad shoulders, the same scarred jaw, the same cold amusement in his eyes. The warlord isn't rushing. He isn't even looking at the walls. He's looking straight at the watchtower, straight at Mu-hyeok. Our boy's blood runs cold, but he doesn't flinch. A Hwasan warrior named Dae-jung grabs his shoulder and shouts over the noise. The eastern wall won't hold against that many fighters, he says. They need to fall back to the inner compound while there's still time. Mu-hyeok shakes his head. If they give up the outer wall now, the raiders will flood through and surround the inner compound before anyone can regroup. They don't need to win this fight, he says. They just need to make it too expensive for the warlord to keep pushing. Dae-jung stares at him like he's lost his mind. A 17-year-old disciple telling a master-rank warrior how to run a defense. But Mu-hyeok is already moving. He points to the northern section of the palisade where the fire has burned low and gives rapid instructions. Archers there, he says, not to kill the raiders, but to pick off their torchbearers. No torches, no light. No light, No coordinated charge. He points to the southern end where the wall dips into a shallow ravine. That's where the second wave will hit, he says, because it's the lowest point and the hardest to defend. He tells Dae-jung to station the strongest warriors there and wait for his signal. Dae-jung hesitates for half a second. Then he sees something in Mu-hyeok's eyes that makes him move. The kid isn't guessing. He knows exactly what's coming. And that's when the second wave hits. Not the ravine, the eastern gate. A battering ram slams into the iron-banded wood with a sound like thunder. The crossbar groans. Dust shakes loose from the hinges. Mu-hyeok is already at the gate tower, looking down at the raiders working the ram. 20 men, shields raised, driving the iron head forward again and again. Grabs a clay jar from the supply stack, yanks the stopper with his teeth, and hurls it down into the torchlight. Lamp oil splashes across the shields. He grabs a second jar and throws that too. Then a third. The raiders below are shouting, slipping, trying to figure out what's happening. And then Mu-hyeok drops a lit arrow straight into the pool of oil. The battering ram becomes a fireball. Raiders scatter, shields burning, arms catching flame. The ram hits the ground and doesn't rise again. But the warlord doesn't even blink. He raises one hand and makes a cutting gesture toward the southern ravine. And just like Mu-hyeok predicted, the real attack comes there. 30 raiders with grappling hooks and short swords hit the lowest section of the wall at once. Hooks bite into the timber, and dark shapes start scrambling up. Dae-jung is ready. His warriors meet the climbers at the top, blades flashing in the firelight. A raider loses his hand and falls screaming. Another takes a spear through the throat, but more keep coming, climbing over bodies, using the dead as handholds, driven by something that looks a lot like madness. Mu-hyeok watches from the gate tower and feels his stomach tighten. These aren't normal raiders. Normal raiders break when they hit real resistance. These ones are pushing through losses that should shatter any mercenary company. They're not afraid of dying. They're afraid of something behind them. He looks past the climbers to the valley floor, and he sees it. Meng Do-jun has dismounted. The warlord is walking toward the southern ravine with 20 elite fighters at his back. These aren't torchbearers or shield carriers. These are the killers. The ones Mu-hyeok remembers from the original timeline. The ones who walked through the compound, slaughtering everyone they found. He remembers one of them specifically. A woman in red leather armor with twin curved daggers and a smile that never reached her eyes. In the original timeline, she killed Master Yoon in the garden. She killed Han Sol in the courtyard. She killed So-yeon in the hallway outside the women's quarters. Mu-hyeok's grip tightens on his blade. Not this time. He shouts down to Dae-jung, telling him to hold the ravine no matter what. Then he's moving again, limping fast along the wall walk, ignoring the fire in his knee. He reaches the southern watchtower just as the first grappling hook clangs onto the railing. A raider hauls himself up, blade clenched between his teeth, eyes wild. Mu-hyeok kicks him in the face before he can grab the rail, and the man drops without a sound. 2 more hooks land. He cuts one rope with a slash of his curved blade and shoves a torch into the face of the climber on the second. The woman in red leather is 5 feet below him, climbing with terrifying speed. She looks up and grins. She says something about the little disciple being brave. Then she vaults the railing and lands on the wall walk in a crouch. Mu-hyeok doesn't wait. He swings, a low cut aimed at her legs, the move he's seen her dodge 100 times in his memories. She hops over it easily, just like he expected, because he's not trying to hit her. He's driving her back toward the section of railing he loosened this morning. A future memory of a fall that killed a Hwasan warrior in the original timeline. She takes one step back, then another. Her heel hits the weakened timber, the railing splinters, and for one beautiful second, her grin vanishes. She grabs for the wall, catches the edge with her fingertips. Mu-hyeok could kill her right now. One slash, and she drops. But he doesn't. He grabs her wrist and hauls her back onto the wall walk. She stares at him, genuinely confused. He tells her to remember this moment. He tells her to leave the compound and never come back, because the warlord she's so loyal to is going to use her as bait in about 20 minutes, and she's going to die screaming while he watches. The woman's face goes pale. Not from the threat, from the detail. Because Mu-hyeok just described something that hasn't happened yet. Something she can almost believe is true. She hesitates. And that hesitation saves her life. The raiders below start shouting, not war cries, but warnings. The warlord is at the ravine, and he's not climbing. He raises both hands, palms outward, and black chi erupts from his body in writhing tendrils. The blood demon arts. The wall shudders, not from the impact of a ram or a hook, from the sheer pressure of his energy pressing against the compound's defenses. The Hwasan warriors at the ravine stumble back. One of them coughs blood. Another drops to his knees. Dae-jung is screaming orders, trying to rally his fighters, but the warlord's aura is crushing them. Mu-hyeok looks at the woman in red. He tells her to make her choice. Then he jumps. Not at the warlord. He's not that stupid. He lands on the lower roof of the storage shed, rolls through the impact, and hits the ground running. His knee almost gives out. He doesn't care. He reaches the inner compound gate and shoves it open. So-yeon is there, bow in hand, a full quiver on her back. She asks what's happening at the ravine. He tells her the warlord is here. She asks if he has a plan. He says he's working on it. She says that's not a plan. He says he knows. They move together through the inner compound, past the council hall, past the holding cells where Elder Jang is supposed to be. The cell door is open. The guard is dead, throat cut from behind, probably a knife he never saw coming. Mu-hyeok stares at the body. He knows this guard. His name was Junso. He had a daughter who liked candied plums. In the original timeline, Junseo died on the eastern wall fighting raiders. This time, he died in a hallway because Mu-hyeok didn't think to post a second guard. So-yeon grabs his arm and pulls him forward. There's no time for guilt, she says. She's right. He knows she's right. But the weight of Junseo's death settles onto his shoulders, alongside every other death he's trying to prevent. They reach the women's quarters just as the southern ravine collapses. Not the wall, the morale. Dae-jung is down, clutching his chest, blood streaming from his nose. The warlord is walking through the gap in the defenses like he owns the place. Because he does. Mu-hyeok pounds on the door of the women's quarters. It doesn't open. He shouts his sister's name. The bar slides back. So-yeon is there, pale but steady, a training sword in her hands. Behind her are 17 women and children, crouched in the darkness, terrified but alive. She says she heard the horns. She says she's been waiting for him. He tells her to stay inside and bar the door after he leaves. She asks where he's going. He doesn't answer, because he doesn't know how to tell her that he's going to walk out there and face Mang Do-jun with nothing but a curved blade and whatever scraps of future knowledge he has left. So-yeon steps forward and says she's coming with him. He tries to argue. She points out that he can barely walk. He doesn't have a counter for that. So they go together, the boy with the broken knee and the girl with the bow, toward the sound of screaming. The inner compound is chaos. Raiders have breached the southern gate. Hwasan warriors are fighting in clusters, back to back, trying to hold the line. Elder Jin is in the center of it, his blade a silver blur, cutting down raiders with cold precision. He sees Mu-hyeok and shouts something about the holding cells. Mu-hyeok shouts back that Jang is gone. Elder Jin's face twists with fury. He asks if Mu-hyeok knows where the traitor went. Mu-hyeok closes his eyes for half a second. In the original timeline, Elder Jang disappeared during the chaos of the massacre and wasn't seen again until 3 days later, when he showed up at Mang Do-jun's camp as a trusted advisor. The only question is how he got out. And then Mu-hyeok remembers. There's a tunnel, an escape route built into the clan's founding plans, designed to let the Patriarch's family flee if the compound ever fell. It runs from the storage cellar beneath the council hall to a dry creek bed half a mile outside the walls. Only 3 people in the clan know about it: the Patriarch, the head elder, and the eldest council member. Elder Jang is the eldest council member. Mu-hyeok tells Elder Jin about the tunnel. Elder Jin's eyes go wide. He asks how Mu-hyeok knows about something that's been secret for 200 years. Mu-hyeok says he'll explain later if they're both still alive. Then he points toward the council hall. If Jang is using the tunnel, he's already inside. And he's probably not alone. Because the warlord doesn't just want the compound. He wants something inside it. Mu-hyeok takes 6 warriors, So-yeon, 2 archers, and 3 of Elder Jin's best swordsmen, and heads for the council hall at a dead sprint. His knee is screaming. His lungs are burning. His vision keeps blurring at the edges. He doesn't stop. They reach the hall just as the rear door swings shut. Mu-hyeok kicks it open. Elder Jang is standing at the far end of the chamber, one hand on the hidden latch beneath the floorboards, the other holding a scroll case. It's the founding scroll, the original document that established the Hwasan clan 2 centuries ago. In the original timeline, the scroll burned with the rest of the archives. Mu-hyeok never knew what was in it, but Elder Jang is risking his escape to take it, which means it's not just a historical artifact. Jang looks up and smiles. He says he was wondering how long it would take the boy to figure out the tunnel. He says Mu-hyeok really does know things he shouldn't. Then he pulls the latch. The floor drops open beneath him. Mu-hyeok lunges. His fingers brush the edge of the scroll case. Jang falls into darkness, and the trapdoor slams shut. And from somewhere deep in the tunnel, Elder Jang's voice floats up. He says the warlord sends his regards. He says the founding scroll was the only thing protecting the clan from Mang Do-jun's full power. He says that without it, the compound will fall before dawn. Then he's gone. Mu-hyeok slams his fist against the trapdoor. Seo-yeon is already circling the hall, looking for another entrance to the tunnel. There isn't one. It's a one-way route, designed for escape, not pursuit. Elder Jin arrives a moment later, breathing hard. He sees the open floor panel, sees Mu-hyeok's face, and understands immediately. He asks what Jang took. Mu-hyeok tells him about the founding scroll. Elder Jin sits down heavily on the council bench. He says they didn't know. He says the scroll was supposed to be ceremonial. He says nobody told them it had real power. And then, in the distance, the warlord laughs. Not a cackle or a shout. A deep, satisfied rumble that rolls across the compound like thunder. The pressure lifts. Mang Do-jun withdraws his warriors from the inner compound. Not because he's losing, because he already has what he came for. The massacre in the original timeline wasn't about territory or resources, or even revenge. It was about that scroll. And now Elder Jang has handed it to him. Mu-hyeok stands in the council hall with a dozen warriors staring at him, waiting for him to tell them what to do. His knee is swollen to twice its normal size. He's running on empty. Jang is gone, the scroll is lost, and the warlord is already planning his next move. But the compound is still standing. Soo-yeon is still alive, and somewhere in the mountains behind the clan's territory, there's an oracle who might know something about the founding scroll that even Elder Jang doesn't. He looks at Elder Jin and says 4 words. Yoon So-yeon, the mountain. Elder Jin asks if he's sure. Mu-hyeok says he's never been less sure of anything in his life, but it's the only move they've got left. The moon is a sliver of bone white above the eastern ridge. Mu-hyeok limps out the rear gate with 5 warriors at his back and a pack full of dried rations on his shoulder. His knee is screaming with every step, but he doesn't stop. Mountain path is a goat trail at best. Loose stone, thorn brush, switchbacks that double back on themselves for no reason. Seo-yeon walks beside him with her bow unstrung and her eyes scanning the tree line. She hasn't said a word since they left the compound. Nobody has. The warlord's laughter is still ringing in their ears, and the founding scroll is gone, and Elder Jang is somewhere in the dark with the only thing protecting the clan from annihilation. Not exactly a morale-boosting situation. The trail climbs for 2 hours. Mu-hyeok counts the switchbacks. In the original timeline, he made this climb once before, 10 years from now, after the compound was ash, and the clan was dead, and he was looking for anything that might tell him why. Back then, the oracle was already gone. The cave was empty, just cold ash and a single scroll he couldn't read. He's hoping this time is different. He's betting everything on it. Seo-yeon finally breaks the silence. She asks what exactly he expects to find up here. Mu-hyeok says he doesn't know. She says that's not a plan. He says it's the only plan they've got left. She doesn't argue. The trees thin out near the ridgeline and the wind picks up. It's the kind of wind that cuts through wool and leather and gets into your bones. Mu-hyeok pulls his cloak tighter and keeps moving. The eastern sky is starting to pale. Dawn isn't far off. They've been climbing all night, and the compound is a distant glow behind them. He hopes it's still there when they get back. The path ends at a rock face. There's no cave, no shrine, no oracle. Just a sheer wall of granite with a single pine tree growing sideways out of a crack. One of the warriors, a young swordsman named Jae-ho, asks if this is the right mountain. Mu-hyeok says it is. He walks up to the rock face and runs his hand along the stone. In the future, he found this place by accident. A cave hidden behind a waterfall that didn't exist anymore because the river had been diverted by a landslide. But the landslide hasn't happened yet. The river is still here. He hears it in the distance, water rushing somewhere below the ridge. He tells the others to wait and heads down the slope toward the sound. His knee gives out twice on the descent. The second time he catches himself on a root and doesn't get up for a long moment. So-yeon appears beside him. She doesn't offer to help. She just stands there with her bow in her hand and waits. Mu-hyeok pushes himself upright. He says he's fine. She says he's a terrible liar. The waterfall is exactly where he remembers it. A narrow cascade dropping 30 feet into a pool of black water. The cave entrance is behind the curtain of falling water. It's barely visible, just a dark slit in the rock that you'd miss if you weren't looking for it. Mu-hyeok wades through the pool. The water is freezing. It comes up to his chest, and the cold makes his knee go numb, which is almost a relief. He pushes through the waterfall and into the cave. The others follow. Jae-ho lights a torch. The cave is small, maybe 20 feet deep with a low ceiling and a floor of smooth stone. There's a fire pit in the center, a bedroll in the corner. and a woman sitting cross-legged on a woven mat with her eyes closed. She looks about 40. Her hair is iron gray and cut short. She wears a simple robe the color of riverstone, and her hands are folded in her lap. She doesn't open her eyes when they enter. She just says his name. Kang Mu-hyeok. So-yeon raises her bow. The oracle opens her eyes. They're pale gray, almost silver, and they lock onto Mu-hyeok like she's looking straight through his skin. She says she's been expecting him. She says she's been expecting him for 10 years. Mu-hyeok asks how that's possible. She says she's an oracle. It's literally her job. He asks if she knows why he's here. She says he's here because the Warlord has the founding scroll, and Elder Jang has escaped, and the compound is going to fall before dawn unless he figures out a way to stop it. She says he's also wondering if telling his sister about the regression was a mistake, and if his knee is going to be permanent, and if Dae-jung is still alive. Mu-hyeok stares at her. So-yeon lowers her bow. The oracle gestures at the fire pit. She tells them to sit down. They're going to be here a while. Jae-ho gets the fire going, while Mu-hyeok lowers himself onto a stone near the mat. His knee throbs. The oracle watches him with those pale eyes and says nothing. Seo-yeon stands by the entrance with her bow still in her hand. She's not sitting down. She's not trusting anything about this. The oracle smiles. She says the archer is smart. She says trust is a luxury that gets people killed. And she turns back to Mu-hyeok and her smile disappears. She says he wants to know about the regression. He wants to know if it's real. He wants to know if he's insane or if the stone actually sent him back. And she's going to answer all of that. But first, she's going to tell him something he doesn't want to hear. She says every change he makes creates a ripple. A small one at first, barely noticeable. But the ripples spread. They touch other people, other events, other outcomes. She says the trap he set at the Eastern Palisade saved 17 lives that were supposed to end tonight. 17 people who are now walking around doing things they were never supposed to do. Saying things they were never supposed to say. Making choices that didn't exist in the original timeline. She says some of those choices will be good. Some of them will be catastrophic. Can't know which is which. He can't control it. He can only keep moving forward and hope the ripples don't drown him. Mu-hyeok asks if she's saying he shouldn't have changed anything. She says no. She says the massacre was a fixed point, a knot in the flow of fate that was always going to happen. But the stone broke the knot. It gave him a chance to untangle something that was never supposed to be untangled. And now fate is reweaving itself around every decision he makes. She says he's not just fighting the Warlord. He's fighting the universe's desire to return to its original shape. Mu-hyeok sits with that for a moment. Then he asks if she knows what's in the founding scroll. The oracle's eyes flicker. She says she does. She says the scroll contains a binding seal, a technique woven into the very foundation of the Hwasan clan by the first Patriarch. It was designed to suppress one specific form of power, the blood demon arts. Mu-hyeok's blood goes cold. He asks if she's saying the scroll was the only thing keeping Meng Do-jun from using his full strength. She says it's worse than that. The scroll didn't just suppress Meng Do-jun's power. It suppressed the patriarchs. Mu-hyeok asks which patriarch. She says all of them. Every ancestor of the Hwasan bloodline carries a fragment of the blood demon arts in their veins. It's a curse, a legacy of the clan's founding that nobody alive remembers. The first patriarch made a deal with something he shouldn't have, power in exchange for corruption. He spent the rest of his life trying to undo what he'd done. The founding scroll was his solution, a seal that suppressed the demonic bloodline and kept his descendants from turning into the monsters they were born to become. Mu-hyeok's head is spinning. He asks if she's saying every member of the Hwasan clan has demon blood. She says yes. He says the scroll kept it dormant, harmless, unnoticeable. But now that the scroll is in Meng Do-jun's hands, the seal is broken. The demon blood is waking up, and that's not even the worst part. Mu-hyeok asks what the worst part is. The oracle looks him dead in the eye. She says Elder Jang doesn't want to break the seal. He wants to use it. He's going to resurrect the corrupted patriarch, the first patriarch, the one who made the deal, the one whose body has been sealed beneath the clan's ancestral shrine for 200 years. When that thing wakes up, it's not going to be grateful. It's going to be hungry. The fire crackles. Nobody speaks. So-yeon's knuckles are white on her bow. Jae-ho looks like he's about to be sick. Mu-hyeok asks how much time they have. The oracle says the resurrection ritual requires 3 things. The founding scroll, which they already have. The blood of a direct descendant of the first patriarch, which Elder Jang has in his veins. And the heart of a supreme-level martial artist, which Meng Do-jun is going to provide. Willingly. Because he thinks the ritual will make him immortal. Mu-hyeok says that's insane. The Oracle says Mang Do-jun has been looking for a way to transcend the limits of the blood demon arts his entire life. The corrupted Patriarch promised him that transcendence 200 years ago. The Warlord doesn't know he's being used. He thinks he's the one in control. He thinks the Patriarch will grant him power. But the Patriarch doesn't grant anything. It consumes. It devours. It turns everything it touches into fuel for its own resurrection. And when it rises, it won't just destroy the Hwasan clan. It will destroy everything within 100 miles. Mu-hyeok asks if there's a way to stop it. The Oracle is quiet for a long moment. Then she reaches into the folds of her robe and pulls out a small leather pouch. She hands it to him. He opens it. Inside is a shard of black stone, smooth and cold, and faintly humming with energy that makes his teeth ache. She says it's a fragment of the same stone that sent him back. The regression stone wasn't destroyed when he used it. It's shattered, and each shard carries a piece of its power. She says if he can find enough shards, he might be able to do something no living being has ever done. Rewrite the seal. Not suppress the demon blood. Purify it. Mu-hyeok stares at the shard. He asks how many he needs. She says she doesn't know. She says the stones shattered into pieces the moment he regressed, and they scattered across the 9 peaks. Some are buried. Some are in the hands of people who have no idea what they're holding. Some are guarded by things that don't want to be found. She says it's a fool's errand, a desperate gamble, the kind of quest that gets people killed. Mu-hyeok closes his fist around the shard. He says it sounds exactly like the kind of thing he'd do. The Oracle almost smiles. She says she knows. That's why she gave it to him. Seo-yeon finally speaks. She asks if the Oracle is coming with them. The Oracle shakes her head. She says her place is here. She's a seer, not a fighter. She can guide them. She can warn them. But if she leaves this cave, the visions stop. Something about the water and the stone, and the way the moonlight hits the pool at midnight. She doesn't explain it further. Mu-hyeok doesn't ask. He stands up. His knee has stiffened while he was sitting, and the pain is worse than before. He ignores it. He asks the Oracle if she knows where Elder Jang is right now. She closes her eyes. Her lips move silently. When she opens them again, her expression is grim. She says Jang is at the ancestral shrine, 20 miles west of the compound. He's already started the ritual. The seal is already cracking. She says the corrupted Patriarch will rise at dawn. That gives them less than 3 hours. Mu-hyeok turns to Seo-yeon. He tells her to take Jae-ho and the others back to the compound. Tell Elder Jin what's happening. Have the clan evacuate the Eastern Valley. Everyone, not just the warriors. The children, the elders, anyone who can't hold a sword. Seo-yeon asks what he's going to do. Mu-hyeok looks at the shard in his hand. He says he's going to the shrine. He's going to stop the ritual, or die trying. So-yeon opens her mouth to argue. Mu-hyeok cuts her off. He says the clan needs her more than it needs him right now. If he fails, she's the only one who knows the truth about the scroll and the seal and the demon blood. She has to survive. She has to make sure someone remembers. So-yeon's jaw tightens. She doesn't agree, but she doesn't argue either. She just nods once, sharp and final, and turns toward the cave entrance. She pauses at the waterfall. She doesn't look back. She says he better not die. He has a terrible track record with promises. Mu-hyeok almost laughs. Then she's gone. Jae-ho and the other warriors follow her into the water. Mu-hyeok is alone with the Oracle. She watches him with those silver eyes. She says his knee is going to give out before he reaches the shrine. She says he knows that. She says he's going anyway. He doesn't deny it. He asks if there's anything else she can tell him. The Oracle reaches into her robe again. This time she pulls out a small clay jar sealed with wax. She hands it to him. She says it's a poultice, made from mountain herbs and a few things that don't have names in any human language. It won't heal his knee, but it will keep him moving for the next 3 hours. After that, the pain will come back 10 times worse. She says it's a temporary fix with a permanent cost. He asks if the cost is worth it. She says that depends on whether he stops the ritual. He breaks the wax seal. The poultice smells like burnt honey and something metallic. He smears it on his knee. The effect is instant. The swelling doesn't go down. The joint doesn't pop back into place. But the pain vanishes completely. He can move. He can run. He can fight for 3 hours. The Oracle says one more thing. She says the corrupted Patriarch has a weakness. Every demon does. But she can't see what it is. Something is blocking her vision. A darkness wrapped around the Patriarch's core like a shroud. She says the answer is in his past. In the moment the first Patriarch made the deal that cursed his bloodline, she says if Mu-hyeok can find that moment, he might find a way to undo it. But it won't be easy. The Patriarch has spent 200 years hiding his shame. The truth is buried deep. Mu-hyeok tucks the shard into his tunic. He thanks the Oracle. She waves him off. She says gratitude is cheap. She says if he really wants to thank her, he'll survive long enough to bring her the rest of the shards. She wants to see what happens when the stone is whole again. She says she's been having visions of a shattered sky, and a world that isn't burning, and a future that doesn't know how to exist yet. She wants to know if it's real. Mu-hyeok says he wants the same thing. Then he turns and limps toward the waterfall. He doesn't look back. The cold air hits him the second he passes through the waterfall. His clothes are already soaked, and the wind on the mountainside cuts straight to the bone. He doesn't stop. The poultice is working. His knee moves without screaming at him for the first time in hours. He can run. So he runs. The mountain path is a narrow shelf of rock, loose shale and pine needles, no wider than a cart in most places. One wrong step, and it's a 300-foot drop into darkness. He doesn't look down. The Oracle's words are still turning over in his mind. The answer is in his past. The path switchbacks down the eastern face. Each turn steeper than the last. His younger body has stamina he'd forgotten existed. He covers the first mile in what feels like minutes. The knee holds. The shard of black stone bounces against his chest, tucked inside his tunic, cold even through the fabric. It hums faintly. A vibration he feels more than hears, like a plucked string deep in his bones. The shard of black stone bounces against his chest, tucked inside his tunic, cold even through the fabric. The trees here are massive, trunks wider than a man's outstretched arms. Their branches blocking the moonlight so completely, he's running through near total darkness. He trusts his feet. He knows this forest. In his first life, he'd fled through these same trees on this same night, bleeding from a dozen wounds, listening to his clan die behind him. The memory tries to surface, screaming, firelight, the wet sound of a blade finding meat. He shoves it down. That was the old timeline. This one is still being written. A branch snaps somewhere to his left. He stops dead. Not an animal. Animals don't try to silence themselves after they step on a branch. He eases his curved blade from its sheath, moving slow, breathing shallow. The forest has gone quiet. Too quiet. He scans the tree line, letting his eyes adjust to the deeper shadows between the trunks. Nothing moves. He waits 10 heartbeats, then 20, still nothing. He doesn't relax. He just starts moving again, faster this time. The blade still in his hand. Third mile brings him to the old lumber trail that runs along the ridge above the eastern valley. From here, he can see the compound in the distance. Tiny points of torchlight clustered behind the walls. Too far to make out individual figures, but close enough to see that the fires are still burning. The eastern palisade is a line of orange embers. The evacuation hasn't started yet. So-yeon is still on the mountain path behind him, climbing down with Jae-ho and the others. She won't reach the compound for another hour at least. He hopes Elder Jin listens to her when she does. He hopes there's still a clan left to evacuate. A shadow detaches itself from a pine trunk 20 feet ahead. Mu-hyeok's blade comes up before his brain even registers the threat. The figure doesn't attack. It steps into a patch of moonlight and resolves into a man in a dark traveling cloak, hood pulled low, hands empty and raised. The man is tall and gaunt, with a face like old leather stretched over a skull. His eyes are the color of rust. He says he's been waiting for Kang Mu-hyeok on the Oracle's orders. Mu-hyeok doesn't lower his blade. He asks what the man wants. The man says he's a collector of stories, specifically the old ones, the ones nobody tells anymore because they're too dangerous or too shameful or too useful to forget. He says the Oracle sent word that someone would be coming down this path tonight, someone who needed to know a story that's been buried for 200 years. Mu-hyeok asks if the story has anything to do with the first Patriarch's deal. The man's rust-colored eyes glint. He says it has everything to do with it. He says the deal wasn't made with a demon. It was made with a mountain spirit, an old, hungry thing that lived in the peak the Hwasan compound now sits on. The first Patriarch, Kang Dae-hyun, was a warrior without peer in his time. But he was losing a war he couldn't afford to lose. His enemies had numbers, resources, and alliances that boxed him in from every direction. He was going to be destroyed, and his bloodline with him. So he climbed the mountain. He fasted for 9 days at the summit, offering his own blood and breath to whatever power lived in the stone beneath him. On the 10th day, something answered. It wasn't a demon, not in the way the scrolls describe hellspawn and dark cultivators. It was older than that. A spirit of the mountain itself, ancient and patient and utterly inhuman. It offered him a deal. Power enough to crush his enemies, power enough to make his bloodline unbreakable. And in exchange, it asked for one thing: a vessel. Not immediately, not him, but one day, one of his descendants would be born with a soul bright enough and strong enough to contain the spirit's full essence. On that day, the spirit would claim its payment. Kang Dae-hyun agreed. He was desperate and proud, and he believed, like every man who makes a devil's bargain, that he could find a way out of it later. He never did. The power came exactly as promised. He crushed his enemies. He founded the Hwasan clan. He wrote the founding scroll and wove the binding seal into it, hoping to lock the spirit's influence deep enough that it could never claim its vessel. It worked. For 2 centuries, it worked. The spirit waited. It fed on the clan's victories, on their pride, on every drop of blood spilled in the Hwasan name, and it watched for the descendant with the bright soul. The man finishes his story and falls silent. Mu-hyeok's blade hasn't moved. He asks who the vessel is. The man says he doesn't know. Nobody does. The oracle couldn't see it. He knows something else. The corrupted patriarch isn't Kang Dae-hyun. It was never Kang Dae-hyun. The ritual Elder Jang is performing doesn't resurrect the founder. It opens a door for the mountain spirit to walk through, wearing the founder's face like a mask. The thing that will rise at dawn is the spirit itself, and it's been starving for 200 years. Mu-hyeok lowers his blade, not because he trusts the man, but because the story lines up with everything the oracle told him. The weakness she couldn't see. The darkness wrapped around the patriarch's core. The answer buried in the past. He asks the collector if there's a way to stop the spirit permanently. The man says there's only one way: destroy the original contract. The deal was sealed in blood and stone, at the summit where Kang Dae-hyun fasted. If someone can reach that summit before the spirit fully manifests, and if they can spill their own blood on the original binding stone, the contract breaks. The spirit is unmade. The bloodline is freed. But it has to be a descendant of Kang Dae-hyun. Blood must match the blood that sealed the deal. And there's a catch. Breaking the contract doesn't just destroy the spirit, it also destroys the power the spirit granted. Every Hwasan warrior who draws on the clan's techniques, every ounce of strength that flows from the bloodline, vanishes the moment the contract breaks. The clan doesn't just lose its protector, it loses its martial foundation. Mu-hyeok takes a breath. Of course there's a catch. He asks the man why he's telling him this. The collector says he told the oracle the same story 50 years ago, when she first came to the mountain. She promised him she'd send the right person to hear it, when the time came. He says he's been waiting for Mu-hyeok for half a century. No pressure at all. Mu-hyeok sheathes his blade. He asks if the binding stone is still at the summit. The man nods. It's never been moved. No one in the clan even knows it exists. The first patriarch erased it from the records, and every generation since never asked the right questions. Summit is a mile above the ancestral shrine. Steep climb, loose rock, no trail. Mu-hyeok asks how long the climb takes. The man says 4 hours for a healthy climber in daylight. Mu-hyeok has less than 3 hours and a knee that's going to betray him the second the poultice wears off. He starts walking. The man calls after him, asking if he's still going to the shrine first. Mu-hyeok doesn't stop walking. He says he's going to do both. He's going to stop the ritual, climb the summit, and break the contract before dawn. The man asks how. Mu-hyeok says he doesn't know yet. He's figuring it out as he goes. The collector laughs, a dry, rattling sound like stones in a gourd. He says that's exactly what Kang Dae-hyun said 200 years ago, right before he made the worst decision of his life. He wishes Mu-hyeok better luck than his ancestor had. Then he steps back into the shadows between the pines, and he's gone. Just like that. Mu-hyeok doesn't wait to see if the man reappears. He's already running again. The lumber trail descends into the western valley, the trees thinning out as the ground turns rocky and steep. The air gets colder the lower he goes, a wet chill that seeps into his soaked clothes and settles in his joints. He can feel the poultice starting to fade. Not the pain, not yet, but the edge of the numbness is softening. Like ice turning slushy at the edges of a frozen pond. He has maybe 2 hours left. Maybe less. The ancestral shrine is a dark shape against the mountainside, crouched at the head of a narrow box canyon 20 miles west of the compound. In the daylight, it's a beautiful structure. Carved stone pillars, a curved roof with eaves that sweep almost to the ground, a courtyard paved with white river stones. At night, with the ritual fire burning in its central hall, it looks like a wound in the mountain. Mu-hyeok drops to a crouch behind an outcropping 100 yards from the shrine's outer wall. The canyon floor is crawling with raiders, not Meng Do-jun's main force. Those are still at the compound, probably regrouping after the failed assault on the South Ravine. These are Elder Jang's personal guard. Men who've been living in the shadows of the Hwasan territory for weeks, maybe months, waiting for this night. They wear dark leather and carry curved swords similar to Mu-hyeok's own blade. They've set up a perimeter around the shrine. Torches at 50-foot intervals, two-man patrols walking overlapping routes. They're not expecting a frontal assault. They're expecting the Warlord. Mu-hyeok counts 12 guards on this side of the shrine, probably more inside. The ritual fire is visible through the main doorway, a column of sickly green light that pulses like a heartbeat. Each pulse sends a faint tremor through the ground. The seal is almost gone. He can feel it. The shard against his chest is humming louder now, reacting to the dark energy bleeding out of the shrine. It's not just cold anymore. It's actively pulling heat from his skin, leaving a circle of numb flesh where it rests. He pulls it out and looks at it. In the darkness, the shard glows faintly, a deep violet light that doesn't illuminate anything around it. It's like the light is pointing inward, towards something only the stone can see. He follows the angle of the glow with his eyes. It's aimed directly at the peak rising behind the shrine. The summit. The binding stone. The shard knows where it needs to go. Mu-hyeok tucks it back into his tunic and studies the perimeter again. 12 guards, a patrol rotation, and a ritual chamber that probably has Elder Jang and at least a handful of his inner circle inside. He can't fight them all. Not with his knee. Not with a single blade and no backup. But he doesn't need to fight them. He just needs to get inside, disrupt the ritual, and then climb a mile of sheer rock before the spirit manifests. Easy. He circles to the western side of the shrine, where the canyon wall presses close to the outer wall. Close enough that a man could jump from the rocks to the roof if he had 2 good legs and no fear of falling. He has 1 good leg and plenty of fear, but he's out of options. He climbs. The rock face is rough, full of handholds and cracks, and his younger body is stronger than his 30-year-old memory expects. He hauls himself up 10 feet, then 15, then 20, his knee protesting with a dull ache that's getting sharper by the minute. Poultice is definitely wearing off. He reaches a ledge level with the shrine's roof and crouches there, breathing hard, sweat freezing on his forehead. Below him, 2 guards pass right under his position without looking up. They're talking about the Warlord, when he's arriving, whether he'll reward them, whether the thing inside the shrine is really going to make them immortal. One of them sounds scared. The other sounds like he's trying to convince himself he's not. They move on. Mu-hyeok judges the distance. The gap between the ledge and the roof is maybe 6 feet. In his prime, with 2 good knees, he could make that jump in his sleep. Right now, it might as well be a canyon. He jumps anyway. His right foot catches the edge of the roof tiles, slips, and he slams chest first into the curved eaves, arms scrambling for purchase. The tiles are cold and slick with mountain dew. His fingers find a seam in the stonework, and he clamps down, hauling himself up inch by inch until he's flat on his back on the shrine roof, staring up at the stars. His heart is pounding so hard he can hear it in his teeth. Nobody raises an alarm. Nobody heard him. He lies there for 10 seconds, catching his breath, then rolls onto his stomach and crawls toward the peak of the roof. The tiles are old, some of them loose, others cracked, and every movement sends a faint scrape echoing into the darkness. He reaches the central ridge and peers over the other side. The courtyard below is lit by the green glow of the ritual fire. 4 more guards stand at the main entrance. Inside the shrine, he can see movement. Figures in dark robes, their shadows stretched long and twisted by the firelight. Elder Jang's voice rises above the thrum of the ritual, chanting something in a language Mu-hyeok doesn't recognize. The words are old. Older than the clan, older than the mountain. The ground trembles again, harder this time. A crack splits the stone floor of the courtyard, running from the shrine's threshold to the outer wall. Green light bleeds out of the fissure like blood from a wound. The ritual is accelerating. Mu-hyeok slides down the inner slope of the roof, catches the edge of the eaves, and drops into a shadowed corner of the courtyard. He lands badly, his knee buckles, and he has to bite down on his sleeve to keep from crying out. The pain is no longer dull. It's sharp and hot and climbing fast. The poultice has maybe 30 minutes left. He forces himself upright and presses into the shadow of a stone pillar, watching the guards at the entrance. They're not looking his way. They're staring at the crack in the courtyard floor, their faces pale and uncertain in the green light. One of them mutters that this wasn't part of the deal. Another tells him to shut up and hold his position. Mu-hyeok moves. He crosses the courtyard in a low crouch, keeping to the shadows, and slides through a narrow side door that leads into the shrine's antechamber. The room is empty. The walls are lined with stone tablets, the names of every Hwasan ancestor who died in service to the clan, stretching back 200 years. His own name would have been on one of these, in the old timeline. He passes through the antechamber and enters the main hall. The heat hits him first. a wave of dry, crackling energy that makes his skin prickle and his eyes water. The ritual fire is at the center of the hall, burning in a stone pit that wasn't there the last time Mu-hyeok visited this shrine. It's been excavated recently. The edges of the pit are raw and jagged, surrounding floors strewn with broken stone and dark stains that might be blood. Elder Jang stands on the far side of the fire, arms raised, his robes soaked with sweat. His eyes are rolled back so only the whites show. He's not chanting anymore. He's screaming. The words are the same ancient language, but they're being torn out of him, ripped from his throat like something on the other side is pulling them through. 3 other dark-robed figures kneel around the fire, their heads bowed, their bodies trembling. They don't seem to notice Mu-hyeok, or they can't move. He can't tell which. In the fire itself, something is forming. It's not a shape yet, more like an absence of fire. A column of absolute darkness in the center of the flames that drinks the green light and gives nothing back. It's growing. The seal is no longer cracking. It's shattering. Mu-hyeok doesn't hesitate. He draws his blade, crosses the hall in 3 limping strides, and grabs Elder Jang by the collar of his robes. The old man's eyes snap back into focus. He sees Mu-hyeok, and his face contorts into something that's half terror and half triumph. He says he's too late. The ritual is complete. The Patriarch is already here. Mu-hyeok pulls him close and says he's not here for the Patriarch. He's here for the old man's keys. Elder Jang blinks. He asks, what keys? Mu-hyeok headbutts him. The old man drops like a sack of stones, out cold before he hits the floor. The 3 kneeling figures don't move. Mu-hyeok kneels. His knee screams in protest and searches Elder Jang's robes. He finds a heavy iron key ring with 3 keys on it, a small map drawn on oilcloth, and a folded letter sealed with Mang Do-jun's personal crest. He takes all of it. The column of darkness in the fire pulses. The ground shakes. A voice that sounds like rocks grinding together speaks from inside the flames. It says 2 words. Kang Mu-hyeok. Our boy doesn't answer. He's already dragging Elder Jang's unconscious body toward the side door by the collar of his robes. The old man's head bounces off the stone floor twice before Mu-hyeok gets him into the antechamber. The 3 kneeling figures still haven't moved. They're frozen in place, their mouths open, their eyes wide and empty. Whatever they let into the fire has already taken what it wanted from them. The voice speaks again. It says the mountain remembers him. It says the mountain has been waiting. Mu-hyeok doesn't look back. He shoulders through the side door, hauls Elder Jang into the courtyard, and drops him in the shadow of a stone pillar. The guards at the main entrance are gone. Their spears lie on the ground, still glowing faintly green where the ritual fire's light touched them. A crack in the courtyard floor has widened. It's 3 feet across now, and the green light bleeding out of it is bright enough to cast shadows on the outer wall. Something is climbing out of that fissure. Something old and patient and hungry. He grabs the oilcloth map from inside his robes and unfolds it. Elder Jang's handwriting is cramped and precise. The map shows the shrine, the mountain path, and a 3rd location marked with a circle and 3 characters, the holding cells. There's a tunnel marked in dotted lines running from the shrine to the cells, a direct path that cuts through the mountain's heart. He knows where Elder Jang was going next. The plan was always to frame him. The ritual was only part of it. The old man needed a scapegoat, someone to blame when the clan council started asking questions about dead guards and stolen scrolls. Mu-hyeok folds the map, pockets the keys, and leaves Elder Jang unconscious in the courtyard. The old man will wake up. He'll run. He always runs. But our boy can't stop to deal with him now, because the thing in the fissure is getting louder. The grinding voice has become a chorus. Multiple voices, all speaking the same ancient language, all saying the same word, over and over again. Kang. He limps out the rear gate of the shrine and hits the mountain path at a dead run. His knee is screaming at him, but the poultice is still working. Maybe an hour left, maybe less. The eastern sky is still dark, but the stars are fading. Dawn is close. He runs for 20 minutes before the compound comes into view below him. The eastern palisade is still burning. The smoke rises in a thick black column that blots out half the stars. He can see figures moving in the courtyard, but he can't tell if they're Hwasan warriors or raiders. He doesn't stop to find out. He reaches the rear gate and finds it barred from the inside. He pounds on the wood with the flat of his blade until a voice calls out from the other side. Hansol. The junior disciple asks who's there. Mu-hyeok gives his name and the gate swings open. Hansol's face is pale and streaked with soot. He says they've been looking for him. He says the council has been called. Mu-hyeok asks why. Hansol doesn't answer right away. He just stares at him with something that looks a lot like fear, and our boy knows. He knows before Hansol opens his mouth again. Elder Jang beat him back to the compound. The council hall is packed. Every elder who's still alive is seated in a half-circle around the central platform. Elder Jin sits at the center, his face carved from stone. The letters are laid out on the floor in front of him. The same letters Seo-yeon pulled from the shrine. The same letters that proved Elder Jang's betrayal. But there are new documents beside them. Fresh ink on fresh paper. Mu-hyeok can see his own name written in someone else's handwriting. Elder Jin tells him to step forward. Our boy does. He asks what this is about. Elder Jin says they found a raider. A wounded one who crawled into the eastern ravine after the second wave broke. The man was dying. Before he bled out, he gave them a name. Kang Mu-hyeok. He said Mu-hyeok was the one who opened the south culvert, the one who signaled the raiders with the watchtower fire, the one who told them exactly where to hit and when. And then Elder Jin holds up one of the fresh documents. A letter. Sealed with Mu-hyeok's personal mark. A mark he hasn't used since he was 15 years old. A mark someone stole from his quarters. Our boy doesn't shout. He doesn't deny it. He just looks at Elder Jin and asks, who brought the letter to the council? And guess who steps out of the shadows behind the elders? Elder Jang. His robes are torn, and there's dried blood crusted under his nose. But his eyes are bright with triumph. He says he found the letter in Mu-hyeok's quarters. He says he went there to check on the young disciple after the battle, and discovered the evidence hidden under a loose floorboard. He says he tried to warn them. He says he's been telling them for days that something was wrong with Kang Mu-hyeok. He asks how a 17-year-old boy knew exactly where the raiders would attack, how he knew about the culvert, how he knew about the battering ram, how he knew about the tunnel, how he knew about everything. The council murmurs. Mu-hyeok looks at So-yeon. She's standing near the back of the hall, her bow still in her hand, her face caught between confusion and disbelief. He doesn't blame her. He can't explain any of it without telling them about the regression, without telling them he's a 30-year-old war veteran wearing a teenager's skin. And if he tells them that, they'll think he's insane, or possessed, or worse. Elder Jang presses the attack. He says the boy is a traitor. He says he colluded with Meng Do-jun to destroy the clan. He says the only reason they're still alive is that the raid failed, not that Mu-hyeok tried to save them. The boy's preparations were a cover, he says. A way to gain their trust while he fed information to the enemy. Elder Jin listens to all of it. Then he asks Mu-hyeok if he has anything to say. Our boy looks at the letters. He looks at the seal. He looks at Elder Jang's smug face. He says nothing. Elder Jin orders his arrest. 4 warriors step forward. One of them is Jae-ho. His face is blank, but his hands are shaking. Mu-hyeok doesn't fight. He hands over his blade. He lets them bind his wrists with rope. They march him out of the council hall, across the inner courtyard, and down a narrow stone staircase he's never seen before. The holding cells are beneath the eastern wing. They're damp and cold, and they smell like iron. The room they put him in is barely 6 feet across. No window. 1 torch in the corridor outside. The floor is wet. He sits down with his back against the stone wall and closes his eyes. The lock clicks shut. He spends the first hour counting the cracks in the ceiling. He spends the second hour listening to the distant sounds of the compound. Footsteps. Shouted orders. The wounded being moved. Somewhere above him, the clan is preparing for the next attack. They're doing it without him. They'll probably die without him. He tries not to think about Soo-yeon. About what Meng Do-jun will do when he finds her. He tries not to think about So-yeon's face when he was dragged away. He fails at both. The third hour starts and something changes. The torch in the corridor gutters. A shadow moves past the bars. Then the lock clicks again. The door swings open and Gil-hyun steps inside. His face is bruised. His left arm is wrapped in a bloody bandage. But he's standing. He grins. He says he heard his best friend got himself arrested for treason. He asks if Mu-hyeok has finally lost his mind. Our boy stares at him. Gil-hyun shouldn't be here. In the original timeline, Gil-hyun died 2 days after the massacre. He was supposed to be dead already, but he's not. He's alive, and he's holding a key. And he's telling Mu-hyeok to get up because they don't have much time. Mu-hyeok asks how he got the key. Gil-hyun says he stole it. He says Elder Jang left his quarters unguarded for about 60 seconds, and apparently, that's all the time a master thief needs. Mu-hyeok asks when Gil-hyun became a master thief. Gil-hyun says about 60 seconds ago. He cuts the ropes on Mu-hyeok's wrists with a small knife. He says he doesn't believe the letters. He says he's known Mu-hyeok since they were 9 years old, and the boy in that cell would never sell out his clan. Not for anything. Not for anyone. He says he doesn't know how Mu-hyeok knew about the attack. He doesn't care. He says the only thing that matters now is stopping Elder Jang and the Warlord before they finish what they started. Then he asks the question our boy has been dreading since he woke up in his childhood bed. What's the plan? Mu-hyeok takes the knife. He gets to his feet. His knee throbs, but the poultice is still holding. Barely. He tells Gil-hyun that Elder Jang is performing a ritual at the ancestral shrine. He says the ritual is summoning something called the corrupted Patriarch. He says it's not the founder of the clan. It's a mountain spirit, wearing the founder's face. And if it fully manifests before dawn, everyone in the compound is dead. Gil-hyun blinks. He says that's a lot to take in. He asks if Mu-hyeok has been smoking something. Mu-hyeok doesn't laugh. He just starts walking. They climb out of the holding cells and into the eastern courtyard. The compound is dark and quiet. Most of the warriors are on the walls, watching for the next wave. Nobody sees them slip through the shadows toward the rear gate. Gil-hyun stops at the armory. He grabs a spare blade for Mu-hyeok. He grabs a bow and a quiver for himself. He says he's not letting his best friend go into a fight against an ancient mountain spirit without backup. Mu-hyeok tells him to stay, to guard the compound, to protect Soo-yeon. Gil-hyun says he already talked to Soo-yeon. He says she's barricaded in the women's quarters with half a dozen warriors who refuse to let the council arrest her. She's safe, for now, but she won't stay safe if the compound falls. The only way to protect her is to stop the ritual, and the only way to stop the ritual is to get to the shrine and break the contract. Gil-hyun says he doesn't understand half of what Mu-hyeok just told him. He doesn't understand the contract or the spirit or the regression or any of it. But he understands one thing. His best friend is about to do something stupid and dangerous, and he's not letting him do it alone. They reach the rear gate. It's unguarded. Every warrior who can still stand is on the walls, watching Mang Do-jun's army. They slip through and hit the mountain path at a run. Mu-hyeok's knee is a knife now. The poultice has maybe 20 minutes left. Maybe 30. After that, the pain comes back tenfold. He doesn't tell Gil-hyun. He just keeps running. The path winds upward through the pine trees. The sky is lighter now. The stars are almost gone. Dawn is maybe an hour away. Maybe less. They run for 30 minutes without speaking. Gil-hyun's breathing is ragged, but he doesn't slow down. He's pushing through the pain the same way Mu-hyeok is. Because he knows what's at stake. Because he's always known. Before they were warriors. Before they were disciples. Before the world tried to crush them both into dust. They were just two boys who promised to die for each other. Tonight might be the night one of them keeps that promise. They round the last bend in the path, and the ancestral shrine comes into view. The courtyard is empty. The guards are gone. The crack in the floor has spread to the outer wall, and the green light pouring out of it is blinding now. The air hums with energy. Mu-hyeok can feel it in his teeth. He can feel it in the shard of black stone pressed against his chest. The shard is burning cold. It's vibrating. It's pointing toward the shrine like a compass needle pointing north. The ritual is almost complete, but something is wrong. Because the front gate of the shrine is open, and standing in the doorway, blocking their path, is Elder Jang. He's not alone. 6 warriors in dark robes flank him. Their eyes are glassy. Their movements are wrong. They don't walk so much as they jerk forward in short, spasmodic bursts. The same way the 3 kneeling figures moved before the fire took them. Mountain Spirit has already marked them. They're not men anymore. They're puppets. Elder Jang raises one hand. He smiles. He says he was wondering when the traitor would arrive. He says the council will be so pleased to hear that their prisoner escaped. He says it will make what happens next much easier to explain. And then the 6 puppet warriors draw their blades. Gil-hyun knocks an arrow. He whispers that he'll handle the puppets. He tells Mu-hyeok to go, to get inside the shrine, to finish this. Mu-hyeok hesitates. Gil-hyun doesn't. He fires the first arrow. It takes the lead puppet in the throat. The thing doesn't fall. It doesn't bleed. It just keeps walking, the arrow sticking out of its neck like a splinter. Mu-hyeok bolts. He cuts left, skirts the edge of the courtyard, and sprints for the shrine's side door. Elder Jang screams at the puppets to stop him. 2 of them break off and lurch after him. Gil-hyun puts an arrow into each of their backs. They don't stop. They don't even slow down. But Mu-hyeok is faster. He reaches the side door, shoulder checks it open, and throws himself inside. The antechamber is dark. The stone tablets lining the walls are cracked. Some of them are weeping green light from fissures that run through the carved characters of his ancestors' names. He doesn't stop to read them. He bursts into the main hall. The ritual fire is gone. In its place is a column of absolute darkness that reaches from the floor to the ceiling. It's 10 feet across. It's pulsing like a heartbeat. And in the center of the darkness, something is taking shape. It's not human anymore. It might have been once, 2 centuries ago, when Kang Dae-hyun made the deal. When the first patriarch traded his family's future for power. But the thing in the darkness now is nothing but hunger given form. It has the founder's face. The same face from the portrait in the council hall. The same strong jaw and proud eyes. But the eyes are wrong. They're not human eyes. They're holes in the skull. Green light glows behind them. The corrupted patriarch opens its mouth. It speaks in a dozen voices at once. It says the vessel has arrived. It says the contract will be honored. It says it can taste the bright soul inside him. The shard of black stone burns against Mu-hyeok's chest. The patriarch reaches for him with one hand. The hand passes through the curtain of darkness. It enters the world. It's not made of flesh. It's made of compressed shadow, of old anger, of 2 centuries of starvation. Mu-hyeok takes one step back. His knee gives out. He hits the ground, and the patriarch's hand closes around his ankle. The cold is instant. It's not the cold of winter or ice or death. It's the cold of being forgotten, of being erased. The shard flares violet against his skin. The patriarch hesitates. It looks at the shard. It looks at Mu-hyeok's face, and for the first time, the hunger in its eyes is replaced by something else. Recognition. Outside, Gil-hyeon screams, not in pain, in warning. Something is coming up the mountain path, something big. Mu-hyeok can hear it. The ground is shaking. The patriarch is still holding his ankle. The shard is still burning, and the first light of dawn is breaking over the eastern peak. Gil-hyeon is still fighting the puppets in the courtyard. He's down to 4 of them. First 2 are on the ground with arrows through their skulls, and they still won't stop twitching. One of them crawls toward him with no legs. Its fingers dig into the white river stones and drag the ruined body forward inch by inch. The green light behind its eyes doesn't dim. It doesn't even blink. Gil-hyeon puts another arrow into its spine, and the thing finally goes still. 3 left. 2 of them rush him at once from opposite sides. He drops the bow, draws his blade, ducks under the first puppet's swing, and spins into the second one with his shoulder. The impact sends it stumbling back into the shrine wall. The first one's sword comes down where his head was half a second ago. He kicks its knee sideways. The joint pops, but the puppet doesn't react. It doesn't feel pain. It doesn't feel anything. Gil-hyeon drives his blade through its chest and twists. The thing jerks once and slumps. He pulls the sword free. No blood. The wound is dry. The tissue inside is gray and dead. These things have been hollowed out. Whatever the mountain spirit did to them, they were gone long before Mu-hyeok ever reached the shrine. The last 2 puppets charge together. Gil-hyeon is already moving. Inside the main hall, Mu-hyeok is on his back with the patriarch's shadow hand wrapped around his ankle. The cold is spreading up his leg. It's in his hip now. It's crawling toward his spine. A shard of black stone burns against his chest like a coal pressed to bare skin. The violet light flares again. The patriarch's grip loosens by a fraction of an inch. It's staring at the shard. Its hollow eyes flicker with something that isn't hunger anymore. It's confusion. It's memory. The grinding voice speaks again, and this time the dozen voices are out of sync. They're arguing with each other. One voice says the stone was destroyed. Another says it cannot be here. A third voice, older and colder than the rest, says the contract is still binding. The stone is proof. The stone is the key. The patriarch releases Mu-hyeok's ankle. The shadow hand withdraws into the column of darkness. Mu-hyeok scrambles backward on his elbows. His knee screams at him. The poultice is wearing off faster than it should. The cold from the patriarch's touch has accelerated the breakdown. He has maybe 15 minutes of movement left before the pain comes back tenfold. He drags himself to his feet, using a cracked stone tablet as a crutch. The patriarch is watching him. Not attacking, just watching. The dozen voices are still arguing, but they're getting quieter. They're coming to some kind of consensus. The column of darkness ripples. The founder's face tilts sideways. The gesture is almost human, almost curious. It asks why the stone bearer bleeds, asks why the vessel fights the gift. It asks why Kang Mu-hyeok does not want the power his ancestor bargained for. Mu-hyeok spits blood onto the stone floor. He says he's seen what the bargain costs. He's lived it. He's died in it. The patriarch's face shifts. For 1 second, the hunger is gone. In its place is something older, something tired. The voice that speaks now is a single voice. It's not the founder's voice. It's something deeper. It says the bargain was never a choice. It says Kang Mu-hyeok came to the mountains starving and desperate with his people dying of plague. It says the offer was simple. Power for a vessel. A bright soul to keep the spirit anchored to the world so it wouldn't fade into the stone and the roots in the dark. 2 centuries of waiting for the debt to come due. Mu-hyeok limps toward the column. He's close enough now to feel the cold radiating off it like an open wound in the world. He asks if the spirit chose to become this. He asks if it wanted to be a monster. The single voice laughs. It's not a cruel laugh. It's the laugh of something that has been alone for longer than human memory. It says it was never anything else. Outside, Gil-hyun kills the last puppet. He's bleeding from a gash above his eye, and his bandaged arm is soaked through. He leans against the shrine wall and catches his breath. His hands are shaking. He looks toward the main hall. Green light is spilling out of every crack in the stone. It's pulsing faster now. Something is happening in there. He pushes off the wall and limps toward the side door. He's not leaving Mu-hyeok alone in that room. Not for anything. Elder Jang is still in the courtyard. Gil-hyun sees him crawling toward the mountain path on his hands and knees. The old man's robes are torn. His face is streaked with soot and blood. He's muttering something. Gil-hyun grabs him by the collar and yanks him to his feet. Elder Jang's eyes are wild. He says the ritual is failing. He says the spirit is breaking the seal on its own. He says none of them were ever in control. The spirit was always going to rise. The scroll and the ritual and the blood were just a door. The spirit was already pushing from the other side. He says the warlord is a fool. He says he's a fool. He says Kang Dae-hyun was the biggest fool of all. He starts laughing. It's the laugh of a man who has finally understood the shape of the trap he built for himself. Gil-hyun drags him toward the shrine. He says if the old man knows anything useful, he's going to say it in front of Mu-hyeok. He says if he doesn't, he's going to die next to the thing he helped summon. Elder Jang stops laughing. Down the mountain, at the edge of the eastern valley, Seo-yeon and Jae-ho are running. They reached the compound 20 minutes ago. What they found was chaos. The evacuation was already underway. Elder Jin had listened. Women and children were being moved through the western pass. The warriors who could still fight were forming a defensive line at the inner gate. Mang Do-jun's army was regrouping. The warlord had pulled his forces back to the tree line. He was waiting for something. Seo-yeon told Elder Jin everything she knew. The ritual, the Patriarch, the contract at the summit. Elder Jin listened without interrupting. When she finished, he asked one question. Is Mu-hyeok still alive? She said yes. He said, then there's still a chance. He gave her a sealed satchel and told her to take it to the shrine. He said it was the clan's oldest record. The original account of the Patriarch's death. He said there might be something in it. Mu-hyeok doesn't know yet. She grabbed Jae-ho and ran. They've been running for 20 minutes. They're still an hour from the shrine. Too far. The column of darkness is visible even from here. It's rising above the mountain like a second peak. Green lightning crackles around it. The ground shakes every time it pulses. So-yeon pushes harder. Jae-ho asks what they're going to do when they get there. She says they'll figure it out when they arrive. She says Mu-hyeok always figures it out. She's been telling herself that since the attack started. She's not sure she believes it anymore. In the main hall of the shrine, Mu-hyeok is still standing in front of the Patriarch. The shard is in his hand now. He's holding it out like a shield. The violet light is steady. It's pushing back the green glow. The single voice speaks again. It says the stone bearer carries a piece of the original breaking. The regression stone was made from the same material as the contract stone at the summit. It was shattered once to send him back. It can be shattered again to end the bargain. But not here. Not like this. The Patriarch reaches out again. This time the hand doesn't grab him. It points past him, toward the door, toward the summit. It says the contract binds from the peak. It can only be broken from the peak. It says the stone bearer already knew this. It says that's why he's stalling. Mu-hyeok doesn't answer. The Patriarch tilts its head again. It says the vessel is brave. It says the vessel is desperate. It says the vessel is running out of time. The column pulses. The crack in the floor widens another 2 feet. Stone tablets topple into the void. The darkness beneath them is absolute. It's not a physical hole. It's a tear in the world. The Patriarch says the door is almost open. It says once it passes through, the bargain is sealed forever. It says the bright soul will be consumed. It says the clan will belong to the mountain. It says this is not a threat. It says this is simply what happens next. Mu-hyeok asks whose soul the spirit wants. The Patriarch's face shifts again. For the first time, it smiles. It's not a cruel smile. It's the smile of something that knows the answer to a question Mu-hyeok hasn't thought to ask yet. It says the vessel has already been chosen. It says the vessel came to the mountain willingly. It says the vessel is standing in this room. He says he's not the vessel. He says the ritual was supposed to use the founding scroll, the blood of the Patriarch. The Patriarch laughs again. It says the scroll was bait. It says the ritual was a distraction. It says Elder Jang was never the architect of this.
It says the bargain was written into the bloodline 2 centuries ago.
Every descendant carries a fragment of the contract. Every descendant is a potential vessel. But the spirit doesn't want just any descendant. It wants the one with the brightest soul, the one who carries the weight of 2 lifetimes, the one who has already died once and came back burning. It wants Kang Mu-hyeok.
The realization hits him like a physical blow.
He staggers backward. His knee buckles. He catches himself on a fallen tablet.
Patriarch watches him with those hollow eyes.
It says it has been waiting for him since the moment he regressed.
It says the regression stone didn't send him back by accident.
It says the stone was always connected to the contract.
It says his return was part of the bargain.
It says he was always going to end up in this room. The shard in his hand pulses.
The violet light flickers.
And the Patriarch takes its first step out of the column of darkness. The Founder's face emerges into the world.
The body beneath it is not human.
It's a shifting mass of shadow and root and old stone. It's 10 feet tall. It's starving.
It reaches for Mu-hyeok with both hands.
And the side door of the shrine crashes open.
Il-hyun stands in the doorway with Elder Jang in one hand and his blade in the other.
He sees the Patriarch.
He sees Mu-hyeok on the ground with the shard in his hand.
He sees the hands reaching. He doesn't hesitate. He throws Elder Jang aside and charges.
The Patriarch's hand swats him out of the air like a fly.
Gil-hyun hits the far wall and crumples. He doesn't get up. Mu-hyeok screams his name.
The Patriarch turns back to Mu-hyeok.
It says the friend is not dead. It says it still needs witnesses. It says the bargain must be recorded.
It says that's how contracts work.
Elder Jang is on his knees in the corner.
He's staring at the Patriarch with something that looks like worship and terror mixed together.
He whispers that he didn't know.
He says the Warlord told him the scroll would make the clan strong again.
He says Mang Do-jun promised him power. He says he never wanted this.
The Patriarch doesn't look at him.
It says Kang Mu-hyeok has a choice. It says he can give himself willingly and the clan will be spared.
The power of the bargain will flow through the bloodline.
The Hwasan clan will rise again, stronger than ever, protected by the mountain.
Warlord will be destroyed.
The raiders will be broken. No one will ever threaten the 9 Peaks again. Or he can refuse.
And the Patriarch will take him anyway.
But the bargain will be twisted. The power will become a curse. The clan will wither.
The mountain will consume them all.
One descendant at a time. One bright soul after another, until there's nothing left.
The Patriarch extends one shadow hand,
open, waiting. Mu-hyeok looks at the hand. He looks at Gil-hyun's unmoving body.
He looks at the shard pulsing in his fist.
The violet light is getting brighter. It's responding to something. Not the Patriarch. Something else.
Something above them.
Through the cracked roof of the shrine, Mu-hyeok can see the summit. It's glowing. The binding stone. The original contract.
It's awake.
And the shard in his hand is pulling toward it like a compass needle pointing home. Mu-hyeok makes his choice.
He doesn't take the Patriarch's hand.
He runs. He bolts for the side door with his ruined knees screaming and the cold of the Patriarch's touch still crawling up his spine. The Patriarch roars. The dozen voices return all at once. The column of darkness erupts. The walls of the shrine crack from floor to ceiling. Stone tablets shatter. The green light goes blinding white. Mu-hyeok bursts into the courtyard. Elder Jang is crawling after him. Gil-hyun is still inside. There's no time to go back. The Patriarch is coming through the door. It's too big for the doorway. The stone frame crumbles around it.
It keeps coming.
It's not running. It doesn't need to run. It has waited 200 years. It can wait a few more minutes. Mu-hyeok limps toward the mountain path that leads to the summit. The shard is burning in his hand now. The violet light is a beacon.
It's lighting the way up.
Behind him, the shrine collapses. The Patriarch steps out of the wreckage. It's still wearing the Founder's face.
It's still smiling.
It says he can run. It says the mountain is its body. It says every step he takes is a step deeper into the bargain.
It says he's not escaping.
It says he's arriving. Mu-hyeok doesn't look back. He starts climbing. The summit is an hour away. His knee has 10 minutes left. Somewhere down the mountain, So-yeon is running toward him with a satchel full of answers he hasn't found yet. And at the edge of the eastern valley, Mang Do-jun gives the order to attack. Mu-hyeok's boots skid on loose shale as he claws his way up the mountain path. His knee is a sack of broken glass wrapped in skin.
The poultice is burning through the last of its magic.
He has maybe 15 minutes before the pain comes back tenfold.
And somewhere behind him,
The Patriarch is still walking. It doesn't hurry. It doesn't need to.
the mountain is its body.
and Mu-hyeok is climbing deeper into its throat. The shard in his fist is blazing violet now. It's not just glowing anymore, it's screaming. The light pulses in time with his heartbeat, and every pulse yanks his arm toward the summit, like a dog on a leash. He can feel the binding stone up there. It's awake, it's waiting, and it's not the only thing. A quarter-mile below, Gil-hyeon drags himself out of the collapsed shrine. His left arm hangs useless. His ribs are cracked. Blood drips from his scalp into his eyes. But he's alive. The Patriarch swat threw him through a stone wall, and the wall broke before he did. Barely. He sees the Patriarch's shadow moving up the mountain. He sees the violet light climbing ahead of it, and he starts walking. Mu-hyeok rounds a switchback and nearly collapses when his knee buckles sideways. He catches himself on a pine trunk and gasps. The bark digs into his palm. The cold air saws through his lungs. He looks up. The summit is still 40 minutes away. The math doesn't work. He knows it doesn't work, but he keeps climbing anyway. That's when he hears the voice. It's not the Patriarch. It's the Oracle.
Her words slide into his skull like cool water.
She says she can reach him through the shard. She says the stone is a door, and doors open both ways. She says he's not going to make it to the summit on that knee. Mu-hyeok doesn't argue. He knows she's right. She says there's another way. She says the binding stone doesn't need his blood. It needs his soul. Not all of it, just the part that remembers, the part that came back, the part that was never supposed to return. He asks what that means. She says it means he has to train, right now, on this mountain, in the 20 minutes he doesn't have. Mu-hyeok laughs. It's a broken, wheezing sound. He asks if she's lost her mind. She says the Patriarch has waited 200 years. It can wait 10 more minutes. She needs 10 minutes to teach him something that will keep him alive long enough to bleed on the right stone. He asks what he's supposed to learn in 10 minutes. She says the most important lesson of his life. The lesson his first life never taught him. How to fight without winning. The shard pulses, and suddenly Mu-hyeok isn't on the mountain anymore. He's standing in the training yard of the Hwasan compound. But it's wrong. The walls are cracked. The training posts are splintered. The ground is frozen solid. And Gil-hyeon is standing in the center of the yard. Not the broken Gil-hyeon bleeding on the mountain, a younger version, 15 years old, the age he was when Mu-hyeok first held a sword. The Oracle's voice echoes through the vision. She says she pulled this memory from the Regression stone. She says it's the day Gil-hyeon first beat him in a sparring match, the day Mu-hyeok learned that skill couldn't save him from someone stronger. The vision. Gil-hyeon draws his blade. It's a practice sword, but the edge glints like real steel. He says the same thing he said 13 years ago. He tells Mu-hyeok to stop thinking. He says thinking gets you killed. He says, feel the blade or die holding it. Vision Mu-hyeok raises his own sword. He's slow. He's clumsy. He's 17 years old and terrified of the boy in front of him. But this time, Mu-hyeok is watching from outside his own body, and he can see everything he missed. Gil-hyeon's weight shifts a fraction before every strike. His eyes don't watch the sword. They watch the shoulders, the hips, the feet. He's not reading the blade. He's reading the body behind it. The Oracle says Gil-hyeon was always the best fighter in the clan. She says he could have been a grand master. She says the only reason he never reached that level was because he died too young. The original timeline, he was killed 2 days after the massacre. Ambushed on the Eastern Road. Cut down by 12 raiders. He took 9 of them with him. The Oracle says Mu-hyeok never saw Gil-hyeon's full potential. But the Regression stone remembers, and the shard can unlock those memories. If Mu-hyeok is willing to learn, in the vision, Gil-hyeon disarms his younger self with a single twist of the wrist. The practice sword clatters on frozen ground. Teenage Mu-hyeok stares at his empty hands. Gil-hyeon tells him to pick it up. He says, do it again. He says, do it until your body knows what your brain can't catch. And the vision resets. And again. Mu-hyeok watches himself lose 47 times. On the 48th, he sees it. The opening. A half-inch of space between Gil-hyeon's ribs and his elbow. A gap that only exists for a heartbeat. But it's there. And if you strike it at the right moment, the whole defense collapses. The Oracle says that's the first lesson. Every fighter has a gap. Every technique has a flaw. Every enemy can be read, even the Patriarch, especially the Patriarch. Because the Patriarch isn't a fighter. It's a spirit wearing a fighter's corpse. It knows how to kill. It doesn't know how to fight someone who's already dead. The vision shatters. Mu-hyeok is back on the mountain. He's on his hands and knees. Violet light is strobing. But his hands are moving. His fingers trace patterns in the dirt. Strike points. Joint locks. Defensive angles. His body is remembering things it never learned. Gil-hyun's muscle memory. Gil-hyun's instincts. Gil-hyun's 48 defeats burned into his bones. The Oracle says the shard can't give him power, but it can give him knowledge. And knowledge, properly applied, is the only weapon that matters. She says lesson 2 is simpler. She says the Patriarch can't be killed by a sword. It's not flesh, it's contract. It's stone and shadow and 200 years of hunger. But it has one weakness. The Founder's face. The only part of the Patriarch that's still human. The only part that remembers what it was before the deal. Strike the face, and the spirit feels it. Not pain. Something worse. Doubt. The Oracle says the spirit doesn't understand doubt. It's never felt it. 2 centuries of certainty, of hunger, of waiting. And now a 17-year-old boy is going to make it question everything it knows. Mu-hyeok asks how. She says by calling it by its true name. Not the Patriarch. Not the Founder. The name it had before it was a spirit. Before it was a monster. Before it was anything at all. She whispers the name into his mind, and Mu-hyeok's blood runs cold. The shard stops pulsing. The mountain goes silent. Even the wind dies. The Patriarch's voice drifts up from below. It says it heard that. It says the Oracle is meddling in things she doesn't understand. It says the name is a weapon that cuts both ways. It says if Mu-hyeok speaks it, the contract will know. The mountain will know. Every stone, every root, every drop of water. They'll all turn against him. He'll be hunted by the mountain itself. Mu-hyeok stands up. His knee screams. He ignores it. He says he's already being hunted. He says the mountain already wants him dead. He says adding a name to the list doesn't change anything. The Patriarch laughs. It's the first time it's laughed. It's the worst sound Mu-hyeok has ever heard. Like rocks grinding together at the bottom of a river. Like old bones cracking in a fire. It says it likes him. It says it's going to enjoy wearing his body. It says it hasn't enjoyed anything in 200 years. Mu-hyeok starts climbing again. His knee lasts another 6 minutes. Then the poultice fails. The pain hits him like a war hammer to the joint. His leg buckles. He goes down hard. His chin bounces off a rock, and his vision whites out. When it clears, he's staring at the crest of the mountain. The summit is right there. A flat shelf of bare stone 50 yards ahead. The binding stone stands in the center. It's taller than he expected. A jagged slab of obsidian, 8 feet high, covered in characters so old they predate the clan. The characters are glowing white-hot. The ground around the stone is cracked and smoking. The air tastes like ozone and old blood. And Gil-hyun is already there. He's standing in front of the binding stone with his blade drawn and his broken arm strapped to his chest. He's facing the Patriarch. The Patriarch has stopped walking. It's standing at the edge of the summit shelf. 10 feet of shadow and root and stolen flesh. It's staring at Gil-hyun. It says the friend is persistent. It says it admires that. It says it will make the friend's death quick. Gil-hyun doesn't answer. He just raises his blade. The Patriarch takes a step forward. Mu-hyeok crawls the last 50 yards on his hands and one good knee. The shard is clamped between his teeth. The violet light is blinding. The binding stone is screaming. Gil-hyun glances back at him. He says Mu-hyeok looks like hell. He says he's seen corpses that looked better. He asks if Mu-hyeok has a plan. Mu-hyeok pulls the shard from his mouth. His lips are bleeding. His knee is a catastrophe. He says he has a name. Gil-hyun asks what kind of name. Mu-hyeok tells him. Gil-hyun's face goes pale. He says that isn't a name. He says that's a death sentence. The Patriarch takes another step. It says speaking the name will break the mountain. It says the binding stone will shatter. It says the contract will end, and the power of the bloodline will end with it. It says the Hwasan clan will be ordinary. No more protection. No more strength. No more legacy. Just another dying family on a dying mountain. It says Mu-hyeok will destroy everything his ancestors built. Mu-hyeok pulls himself upright using Gil-hyun's shoulder. He can barely stand, but he's standing. He says the Hwasan clan was never built on a deal. It was built on a man who loved his family enough to sell his soul for them. And that man made a mistake. He says the clan doesn't need the mountain's power. He says the clan needs to be free. He opens his mouth. The Patriarch lunges. Gil-hyun steps in front of Mu-hyeok. He takes the blow with his good arm. His blade shatters. His arm snaps. He goes flying sideways and lands in a heap 20 feet away. He doesn't get up. But he bought Mu-hyeok 1 second. Mu-hyeok speaks the name. The mountain screams. Every stone on the summit cracks at once. The binding stone erupts with light so white it erases the world. Patriarch freezes mid-strike.
Its stolen face contorts.
And for the first time in 200 years, the mountain spirit feels something it doesn't understand. Fear. The mountain screamed, and the Patriarch froze. Not because it wanted to, because the name did something to its stolen body. Its face twisted like wet clay. The white light from the binding stone ripped through every crack in the summit. Our boy stood in the center of it, with his chest heaving and his lungs on fire. Gil-hyun was a crumpled heap 20 feet away with a shattered arm and no sound. The mountain spirit felt fear for the first time in 2 centuries, and the Patriarch screamed back. Not a roar of fury, a scream of confusion, because the thing inside the Patriarch was no longer the mountain's guardian. It was a parasite wearing a god's face. And right then, that parasite lost its grip. The corrupted Patriarch's limbs snapped backward. Its body folded like a paper doll in a storm. It shot off the summit in a blur of black smoke and shattered rock. It didn't fight. It fled, straight down the eastern cliffs and into the tree line below. Our boy didn't chase it. He couldn't. His legs were noodles, and his ears were ringing. He crawled to Gil-hyun and checked for a pulse. Still alive. Barely. The old warrior's good arm was a pretzel, and his breathing was shallow. Mu-hyeok pressed his forehead to the cold stone and let out a breath he'd been holding since the day he died the first time. He knew what this was. A delay, not a victory. The Patriarch would reform. It would remember how to control that body. And when it came back, it would bring an army. So our boy used the one thing he still had left. His memory. 13 years of dying and learning and losing. He knew exactly who would answer a call for help. And exactly who would sell them out the second the gates opened. First night after the summit, he wrote 12 letters. He didn't sleep. He sat in the clan hall with a brush and a stack of parchment and wrote until his fingers cramped. Every letter was different. To the Jang clan of the Northern Pass, he promised iron rights and a trade route. The Hwa sisters at Red Pine Temple, he sent the exact coordinates of a hidden meditation cave they'd lose in 3 years. To the wandering blade master Baek Un-ho, he mentioned the name of the student who killed him in the original timeline. Small details, big debts. Our boy was building a web with nothing but ink and desperation. He had one regression, one shot. The massacre day was the first of the 7th month, and that day was already breathing down his neck. He sent the messengers out before dawn. 5 of them took the letters and vanished into the mist. 3 came back. The other 2 were never seen again. Mu-hyeok didn't mourn them, couldn't afford it. 3 days later, Mang Do-jun came. Not with a raiding party, with an army. 300 soldiers surrounded the clan's fortress like a noose. They marched in perfect formation, with torches and siege hooks, and the traitor's banner flying high. Big Banana himself rode at the front on a black warhorse. His armor was polished to a mirror shine, and his face was exactly the same smug mask Mu-hyeok remembered from the original fall. Only this time, our boy wasn't bleeding out in the courtyard. This time, he was standing on the wall with his arms crossed and his jaw set. He watched the army settle into siege positions. He watched the catapults being assembled. He watched the traitor general dismount and stride toward the gatehouse with 24 guards. And then Mu-hyeok did something nobody expected. He opened the gate, just a crack, and walked out alone. No armor, no sword, just him in the cold morning air and 300 enemies staring like he'd lost his mind. The traitor general laughed. Of course he did. Mang Do-jun always laughed when he thought he'd won. He called out something about the little cabbage head finally surrendering, about how he'd make it quick if Mu-hyeok kissed his boots. Our boy just smiled. Then he drew the shortest, ugliest blade anyone had ever seen. Dagger with a chipped edge and a rusted guard. And he pointed it right at Mang Do-jun's throat. He didn't shout a challenge. He just looked at the man and asked one simple thing. Is that the same armor you wore when you killed my sister? The laughter stopped. The army went quiet. The traitor's face flickered with something ugly, and Mu-hyeok took one step forward. That's when the duel started. Not because Mang Do-jun agreed, because he lunged. The bastard was fast. His greatsword came down like a guillotine, all rage and no finesse. The boy ducked under it by a hair. He rolled left, came up swinging, and caught the flat of the blade on his dagger. The impact rattled his teeth. Mang Do-jun was a monster in heavy armor. Every swing sent shockwaves through the ground. Mu-hyeok danced around him like a wasp. He dodged 3 slashes, a thrust, and a kick that would have caved in his ribs. His knee was already screaming from an old wound, but he ignored it. He died once with this exact man's sword in his spine. He wasn't dying the same way twice. The traitor general overcommitted on a horizontal sweep. It was a tiny mistake. a half-second of exposed armpit where the plate didn't quite overlap. Our boy saw it. He threw his dagger left-handed. The general's eyes tracked the useless throw automatically. Stupid. That was the feint. While Mang Do-jun's gaze followed the dagger, Mu-hyeok stepped inside his guard and drove his real weapon home, a broken sword tip he'd hidden in his sleeve. The jagged steel punched through the leather gap and sank 3 inches into the traitor's shoulder. Blood sprayed across the snow. Mang Do-jun howled. He staggered back with the shard still sticking out of his joint. His sword arm hung limp. The guards surged forward. Our boy kicked the general in the chest and sent him crashing into the mud. Then he backed toward the gate with his empty hands raised and a smile that belonged on a madman. "You're not dying today," he told the traitor. That would be too easy. He vanished behind the closing gate before the guards could reach him. Heavy iron groaned shut, and the bar dropped into place. Outside, the traitor general's screams turned into orders. The siege engines rolled. The assault began. The next 6 hours were a meat grinder. The fortress walls held. Just barely. Every time a ladder went up, Mu-hyeok was there with a spear or a rock or a fist. His warriors fought like they knew this was the day they were supposed to die, because for some of them, it was. He'd told them. Not all of it, but enough. Elder Jang was already in chains in the basement. The rice wine was dumped out. The night watch was sober and armed. Every archer knew exactly where Mang Do-jun's raiders would cluster. Because our boy had seen this attack in his nightmares for 13 years, he knew every ladder placement, every feint, every breach. By sundown, the enemy had lost 60 men and gained 3 feet of outer wall that collapsed into a pit trap the defenders had dug the night before. The catapults ran out of ammunition. The traitor's shoulder wound festered, and his officers started arguing. Just before dusk, the corrupted Patriarch came back. Not physically. Not yet. But the air turned cold, and the shadows stretched wrong, and every warrior on both sides felt something ancient pressed down on their souls. The siege stopped. No one gave an order. The soldiers just backed away from the walls, like they'd heard a silent alarm. Mang Do-jun stood at the tree line with his arm in a sling, and his face a mask of impotent rage. Behind him, the darkness shifted. A shape loomed in the trees. Tall and wrong, and wearing a face that didn't belong to it. The Patriarch. It didn't attack. It didn't speak. It just watched. And then it turned and melted back into the forest. The traitor army followed. They broke camp in the dark and retreated north with their wounded and their shattered pride. Our boy watched from the wall until the last torch disappeared. Then he slid down and sat with his back against the stone. His knee was the size of a melon. His jaw was swollen shut on one side. His left eye was a purple slit. He wrapped the knee with a torn banner someone had ripped from the gatehouse pole. The bleeding stopped. The quiet started. The gate hadn't been closed for 10 minutes. Not properly. The big one was barred. But the sally port was still half open, and the wounded were still being carried through. Somewhere in the distance, a fox screamed. The cold seeped up through the stone and into his bones. He sat there and breathed. One more day. One more breath. The mountain spirit was silent again, but the binding was cracked, and they both knew it. The Patriarch was licking its wounds, and Mang Do-jun was still alive. But so was the clan. So was his sister. So was the old warrior with the broken arm who'd taken a blow for him on the summit. He didn't have a victory. He had a stay of execution, and that was enough. For now. The gate groaned as the last wounded were pulled inside. Somewhere, someone shouted for a medic. The women's quarters were too quiet. But nobody noticed. Not yet. Hansol would find him in 10 minutes. He'd bring worse news. The gate hasn't been closed for 10 minutes when Hansol finds him. Mu-hyeok is still sitting against the inner wall with his knee wrapped in a torn banner. His jaw's the size of a fist, and his left eye won't open. Hansol isn't here about the knee. He says the women's quarters went quiet. Too quiet. Mu-hyeok tries to stand and his leg doesn't answer. Il-hyeon catches him before he hits the ground. His arm is still broken, but he doesn't seem to notice. He hauls Mu-hyeok up and they move. The compound is a wreck of mud and blood and exhausted warriors leaning on their spears. Nobody knows what happened at the women's quarters because every fighter who could swing a blade was on the walls. That was the point. The women's quarters sits at the back of the inner compound, behind a second wall and a locked gate. Mu-hyeok posted 6 warriors there with orders to barricade the door and not open it for anyone. The gate is open. The lock is still hanging from the bar. It wasn't broken. Someone opened it from the inside. One of the 6 warriors is dead on the threshold with a knife in his throat. The other 5 are scattered in the courtyard. All dead. Every single one. The cuts are clean and fast, and made by someone who knew exactly where to strike. Mu-hyeok doesn't stop to examine the bodies. He already knows whose blade did this. The door to Soo-yeon's quarters hangs off its hinges. Inside the room is torn apart. The barricade she built is splintered. Her meditation mat is soaked in blood that isn't hers. And she's gone. Mu-hyeok's vision goes white at the edges. Gil-hyeon steadies him and says her name. Mu-hyeok doesn't answer. He's staring at the wall above her bed. Scratched into the wood with the tip of a blade are 4 characters. Come alone, Mu-hyeok. Below them is a crude map. Eastern Gate. Ravine Path. Old Watchtower. Elder Jang's handwriting. Mu-hyeok doesn't scream, doesn't rage. He turns to Gil-hyeon and says the old man took her to break him. He says Jang doesn't want the clan anymore. Jang wants Mu-hyeok to suffer before he dies. Gil-hyeon asks how many men. Mu-hyeok says none. He says Jang said come alone, and that's what he'll do. Gil-hyeon says that's suicide. Mu-hyeok says he's already died once. He limps to the armory. His knee grinds with every step, but the pain is somewhere far away now. His body is here, but his mind is back in the original timeline. Back when he found Soo-yeon's body in the burning hall, back when he was too late, he will not be too late again. The armory is mostly empty. Most of the weapons are on the walls or in the hands of dead warriors. He finds a short blade, good for close quarters. He straps it to his good leg. Gil-hyeon is behind him, still there, still holding his broken arm. Mu-hyeok tells him to stay. Gil-hyeon says no. He says he's followed Mu-hyeok into a collapsed shrine and up a mountain and into a fight with a 10-foot shadow monster. He says an old traitor with a knife doesn't scare him. Mu-hyeok looks at him for a long moment. Then he nods. They leave through the rear gate. Nobody sees them go. The eastern ravine is dark even in the gray morning light. The path is narrow and cut into the side of the mountain. One wrong step, and you tumble 50 feet into sharp rocks and fast water. The old watchtower sits at the end of the path on a shelf of stone overlooking the valley. It was abandoned decades ago when the clan built the new eastern wall. Nobody goes there anymore, except traders. The tower is a skeleton of old timber and rusted nails. Half the roof is gone. The stairs inside rotted away years ago. A single figure stands in the open doorway at the top, Elder Jang. He looks different than he did in the council hall, cleaner, sharper. The old man's robes are replaced with dark fighting clothes, and his hands are bare. No weapon visible. That's worse than a drawn blade. It means he doesn't think he needs one. Soo-yeon is on her knees beside him. Her hands are bound behind her back, and a strip of cloth is tied across her mouth. Her eyes are wide and wet, but she's not panicking. She's watching for Mu-hyeok. She knew he'd come. Elder Jang smiles when he sees them. He says he was starting to think the boy wouldn't show. He says he's pleased to be wrong. Mu-hyeok stops 20 feet from the tower. Gil-hyeon stops beside him. Elder Jang's smile widens. He said come alone. Mu-hyeok says Gil-hyeon isn't here for the fight. He's here to take Soo-yeon home. Jang laughs. He says that's optimistic. He says the girl isn't going anywhere. Not until Mu-hyeok gives him what he wants. Mu-hyeok asks what that is. Jang says he wants the boy to watch. He wants Mu-hyeok to see everything he built burn. He says the Warlord's army is at the walls, and the compound will fall before sunset. He says the mountain is broken, and the contract is dead, and there's nothing left to protect them. He says all of it is Mu-hyeok's fault. Mu-hyeok says he knows. Jang's smile falters. Just a flicker. Mu-hyeok says he knows everything Jang did. The meetings with the Raider Scout. The signals during the first attack. The letters planted in his quarters. The knife that killed the guard outside Jang's cell. He says Jang has been working for Meng Do-jun since before the Harvest Moon was announced. Jang's eyes narrow. He asks how a 17-year-old boy knows all that. Mu-hyeok says it doesn't matter. He says what matters is that Jang is out of moves. He says the scroll is gone, and the ritual failed, and the Patriarch is scattered into the mountain. He says Jang has nothing left to bargain with, except a girl who's worth more dead than alive. Jang's hand moves faster than a man his age should be able to move. The knife appears from his sleeve, and the edge presses against Soo-yeon's throat. She doesn't flinch. She's staring at Mu-hyeok with something fierce in her eyes. Jang says the boy talks too much. He says maybe he should take the girl's tongue to teach him a lesson. Mu-hyeok's face doesn't change. He says if Jang hurts her, he'll die slow. He says he's not the clan council. He's not bound by honor or law or tradition. He says he's the man who broke a mountain and unmade a 200-year-old contract. He says killing an old traitor with a knife won't even slow his heart rate. Jang believes him. The knife doesn't move, but his eyes do. He flick to Gil-hyeon for just a heartbeat. Mu-hyeok sees it.
He takes a step forward. One step. That's all his knee will give him.
Jang says to stop.
Mu-hyeok doesn't stop. He takes another step. His knee screams and his vision doubles, but he keeps his face blank.
Jang's composure cracks. He says he'll do it. He says he'll kill her right here, and the boy can watch her bleed out on the stones. Mu-hyeok says no, he won't.
He says Jang is a survivor.
He says survivors don't kill their hostages because hostages are the only thing keeping them alive. He says the knife against Soo-yeon's throat is the only reason Jang is still breathing. Jang's hand trembles. The blade nicks Soo-yeon's skin. A thin line of blood runs down her neck. Mu-hyeok stops walking. He says Jang has one chance to walk away. He says to let the girl go and disappear into the mountains and never come back. Jang says the Warlord would hunt him down. Mu-hyeok says the Warlord is going to be too busy to hunt anyone. He says by the time the sun sets tonight, Mang Do-jun will have bigger problems than a runaway elder. Jang asks what that means. Mu-hyeok says it means the neighboring clans got letters this morning. It means the Hwasan clan isn't alone anymore. It's a bluff. The letters went out, but no one has answered. No one will answer for days. But Jang doesn't know that. Jang hesitates. And in that hesitation, Gil-hyun moves. He doesn't run toward the tower. He runs to the side, to the old access path that curves around the back of the shelf. Jang doesn't see him go. His eyes are locked on Mu-hyeok. Mu-hyeok keeps talking, keeps pushing. He says Jang's plan was always to burn the clan and take the scroll and hand the Patriarch to Mang Do-jun. He says Jang thought he'd be rewarded. He says instead the Patriarch is gone and the scroll is worthless, and Jang is standing in a rotting tower with nothing but a hostage and a dull knife. He asks what Jang thinks the Warlord does to people who fail him twice. Jang's face goes pale. He says the boy doesn't know anything. Mu-hyeok says he knows the Warlord has a temper. He says he saw what Mang Do-jun did to the last man who disappointed him. He describes it in detail. The sounds and the blood and the way the body didn't look human when it was over. Jang's breathing is shallow now. The knife wavers. He's not looking at Mu-hyeok anymore. He's looking past him. Looking for the Warlord's riders, looking for the punishment he knows is coming. That's when Gil-hyun comes over the back of the tower, climbs the rotted timber with one good arm and a leg that's still bleeding from the mountain climb. Quiet as a shadow, painless as death. Jang doesn't hear him until it's too late. Gil-hyun grabs Soo-yeon and yanks her backward. Jang spins and the knife slashes blind. It catches Gil-hyun across the chest. Not deep, but enough. Gil-hyun shoves Soo-yeon toward the edge of the shelf, toward Mu-hyeok. She stumbles and falls and rolls to a stop 10 feet from the tower door. Mu-hyeok limps forward and cuts her bindings. He pulls the cloth from her mouth. She says Jang took the 6 warriors like they were nothing. She says he moved like a man half his age. Mu-hyeok says he knows. He tells her to run. She says no. He says go back to the compound and tell Elder Jin that Jang is finished. He says this is between him and the old man now. She runs. Mu-hyeok turns back to the tower. Jang has Gil-hyun pinned against the rotted railing. The knife is at Gil-hyun's throat. Jang's eyes are wild now. The composure is gone. He says it's over. He says the boy loses. He says Gil-hyun dies and Soo-yeon dies, and the clan dies, and all of it is Mu-hyeok's fault for thinking he could change fate. He says the boy should have stayed dead the first time. Mu-hyeok draws the short blade from his leg. His knee buckles, and he goes down on one knee. Not a choice. Just physics. Jang laughs. He says the boy can't even stand. He says this is the man who broke a mountain, this crippled child in the mud. Jang raises the knife. The blade glints in the gray light. Gil-hyun doesn't fight. He's looking at Mu-hyeok, not with fear, with something else, something like peace. He says it's okay. He says this is how it was supposed to be. He was supposed to die 2 days after the massacre. He got 2 extra days. He says those 2 days were worth it. Jang's knife comes down. Mu-hyeok throws the blade. His arm is weak, and his aim is wrong, and the knife hits Jang in the shoulder instead of the chest. Jang screams and staggers. But the knife in his hand already found its mark. Gil-hyun's throat opens in a clean red line. He falls. He hits the old planks, and the wood cracks under his weight. Mu-hyeok crawls toward him. His knee is a ruin, and his hands are bleeding on the stones, but he crawls. Jang is behind him somewhere, running, escaping. Mu-hyeok doesn't care. He reaches Gil-hyun. The wound is too deep. Too much blood. Gil-hyun's eyes are still open, still calm. He says something but no sound comes out, just a shape of words. Mu-hyeok reads them on his lips. Win anyway. Gil-hyun dies in the old watchtower with the gray sky above him and the sound of the river below.
Mu-hyeok holds his hand until it goes cold.
Then he closes his friend's eyes and stands up on a knee that should not hold him.
Elder Jang is gone. The trail leads back toward the compound.
Back toward the siege. Mu-hyeok doesn't follow. Not yet.
He lifts Gil-hyun's body and carries it down the ravine path one step at a time.
Every step is agony, and every breath tastes like the copper of his own blood. But he doesn't stop. He finds a place at the base of the mountain where the river bends and the ground is soft.
An old pine stands there,
Shattered by lightning years ago, but still alive.
Gil-hyun would have liked it. Mu-hyeok digs with his hands.
The mud is cold, and the stones cut his fingers, but he doesn't use a tool.
This has to be done with his own hands. It takes an hour, maybe more.
He doesn't keep track.
When the grave is deep enough, he lays Gil-hyun in it. He places the broken blade beside him,
The one that shattered on the Patriarch's face at the summit.
the one Gil-hyun refused to replace.
Mu-hyeok fills the grave and packs the earth flat with his palms.
He finds a flat stone and scratches 4 characters into it with the tip of his short blade. Gil-hyun, friend, warrior, brother who chose to stay.
He plants the stone at the head of the grave.
Then he kneels in the mud in the cold and he speaks. He says he's sorry.
He says Gil-hyun deserved a lifetime.
He says Gil-hyun was supposed to be a grandmaster.
He says,
In the original timeline, Gil-hyun died 2 days after the massacre, taking 9 raiders with him.
He says this time it was one old man with a knife.
He says he should have been faster. He should have thrown better.
He should have seen the trap before they left the compound.
He says it should have been him. The mountain doesn't answer. The river keeps running.
The pine creaks in the wind.
Mu-hyeok stands. His knee is a wreck. His hands are bleeding. His friend is dead, and his sister almost died, and the man who killed them both is still alive somewhere in the valley. But he's still standing.
He looks at the grave one last time.
Then he turns back toward the compound, toward the siege, toward whatever comes next. He walks. 1 step,
Then another.
his knee grinds. His vision swims. He doesn't stop.
Somewhere above him,
The clouds break, and a thin shaft of morning light hits the mountain. Gil-hyun's grave is the first thing it touches. Mu-hyeok limps through the rear gate of the compound just after dawn. The guards don't recognize him at first.
his face is caked with mud and dried blood,
And his clothes are shredded from the climb and the grave digging and the fight at the watchtower.
one of them raises a spear.
Then Han-sol spots him from the wall and shouts his name, and the spear drops. Han-sol scrambles down the ladder and catches Mu-hyeok before he collapses. He asks what happened to Gil-hyun. Mu-hyeok doesn't answer.
His face says everything.
Han-sol goes pale and helps him toward the council hall without another word. The compound is a wreck.
Smoke still rises from the eastern wall where the oil fires burned.
Warriors sleep in shifts against the palisade with weapons in their hands.
The siege camp is visible through the gaps in the gate,
500 strong and waiting. Mu-hyeok limps past all of it with Han-sol under his arm.
He doesn't stop at the healer's tent.
He doesn't stop for water. He heads straight for the council hall, where Elder Jin is already awake and staring at a map covered in troop markers. So-yeon is there too.
She got back an hour ago with Jae-ho and the oldest record.
A massive leather-bound book, so fragile the pages crumble at the edges.
She turns when the door opens.
She sees Mu-hyeok's face. She knows. She doesn't ask.
She just pulls out a chair and helps him sit before his knee gives out completely.
Mu-hyeok looks around the table.
Elder Jin,
So-yeon, Jae-ho, Han-sol, and 2 senior warriors whose names he knows from the original timeline because they died on the first night.
they're all still alive. That's something.
He tells them Gil-hyun is dead. Nobody speaks. He tells them Jang killed him at the old watchtower and escaped with a knife wound to the shoulder. He tells them Jang is still out there somewhere between the compound and the siege lines. Elder Jin asks if they should send a pursuit.
Mu-hyeok shakes his head.
Jang isn't running. He's regrouping.
He's been working for Mengdo-jun since before the Harvest Moon,
And he knows every weakness in the compound's defenses.
a wounded traitor with
Nothing left to lose is more dangerous than a whole company of raiders. So-yeon asks what they do now.
Mu-hyeok looks at the oldest record on the table.
He's been keeping secrets since the moment he woke up in his 17-year-old body.
He told the council about the raiders,
But he didn't tell them how he knew.
he told So-yeon about the cave,
But he didn't tell her what the oracle really said.
he told Gil-hyun enough to earn his trust,
But not enough to save his life. The secrets didn't protect anyone. They just left his allies half-blind and Gil-hyun dead.
He makes a decision right there in the cold morning light with his knees screaming and his hands still crusted with grave dirt.
No more secrets.
He tells them everything.
He tells them he died at 30 years old on the blade of Mengdo-jun after watching the clan burn and his sister die, and every warrior he ever trained with get cut down. He tells them he woke up in his childhood bed on the morning of the Harvest Moon, with 30 years of memories and one chance to change it. He tells them about the Regression stone, and the oracle in the cave behind the waterfall, and the shard that burned his chest and taught him how to read a fighter's body. He tells them the Patriarch was never human. It was a mountain spirit wearing the founder's face, bound by a contract written in blood 200 years ago. He tells them he broke that contract at the summit. He tells them Gil-hyun helped him do it, and Gil-hyun is dead because of it. And the clan has no supernatural protection anymore, just their training and their walls and whatever allies they can scrape together. The room is silent for a long time. Elder Jin's face is unreadable. So-yeon stares at Mu-hyeok like she's seeing him for the first time. Jae-ho looks at the floor. Han-sol's hands are shaking. Then Elder Jin speaks. He says he doesn't understand half of what Mu-hyeok just said. He says he doesn't know if he believes it. He says it doesn't matter because the siege is real, and the traitor is real, and the boy who just poured his soul onto the council table is the only reason any of them are still breathing. He asks what Mu-hyeok needs. Mu-hyeok doesn't hesitate. He needs the 5 people in this room to know everything he knows. Every future event, every enemy weakness, every trick the Warlord used in the original timeline. If Mu-hyeok falls, someone else needs to carry the plan forward. No more single points of failure. So-yeon nods. She pulls out a fresh sheet of paper and dips a brush in ink. "Tell us," she says. And he does. He starts with Mang Do-jun. In the original timeline, the Warlord wasn't just a raider chief. He was building something bigger, a coalition of bandit lords and disgraced martial artist and mercenary companies, all of them united under the blood demon arts. The Hwasan massacre was supposed to be his debut, the first domino in a campaign that would burn half the 9 peaks before anyone organized a real response. Mu-hyeok knows the names of every lord who joined him. He knows which ones were reluctant and which ones were eager. He knows the Warlord's fighting style, the rhythm of his blood demon arts, the feint he always uses before the killing blow. So-yeon writes it all down. Then he moves to the compound itself. The siege will tighten over the next 2 days. Mang Do-jun doesn't have the patience for a long encirclement. He'll send probing attacks at dusk and dawn to test the walls. He'll try to burn the storehouse. He'll send sappers at the south culvert, the same one Mu-hyeok collapsed during the first raid. They need to reinforce that section before nightfall. Elder Jin dispatches one of the senior warriors to handle it immediately. Then Mu-hyeok gets to the hard part. Elder Jang knows about the tunnel, the one from the holding cells to the eastern ravine. It was on the map Mu-hyeok found in the shrine. Jang drew that map. He knows the tunnel exits 200 yards outside the walls. He knows it's unguarded because nobody alive remembers it exists except the elders. And Jang is out there right now with a knife wound and a grudge and nothing to lose. If he tells Mang Do-jun about the tunnel, the siege is over tonight. Han-sol asks if they should collapse it. Collapsing it would trap them inside the compound with no escape route. They need the tunnel. They just need to make sure Jang doesn't live long enough to talk about it. So-yeon looks up from her notes. He asks if Mu-hyeok knows where Jang went. He doesn't. Not for sure. But he knows Jang's patterns. Jang didn't run toward the siege camp when he fled the watchtower. He ran north, the opposite direction from Mang Do-jun's banners, which means he's not going to the Warlord. Not yet. He's going somewhere else first. Mu-hyeok thinks about everything Jang said at the watchtower. The Warlord knows your name. The ritual was only the beginning. You can't stop what's already in motion. Jang wasn't just a traitor working for gold or power. He was a true believer. He believed in whatever the corrupted Patriarch promised him. And if the Patriarch is truly scattered, and the mountain is broken, Jang has nowhere left to go except the one place the old bastard always retreated to when things went wrong. Leather-bound book So-yeon and Jae-ho carried down from the mountain. He asks them where they found it. Jae-ho says it was in a sealed chamber behind the Oracle's cave, a room the Oracle told them to search before they left. She said Mu-hyeok would need it. He opens the book. The pages are brittle and the ink is faded, but the text is still legible. It's not a history of the clan. It's a record of the contract. Every detail, every clause, every loophole. The binding stone at the summit was the public symbol, but the original agreement was written somewhere else, a place where the mountain spirit's power was strongest. A hidden temple carved into the cliff face on the north side of the peak. The oracle marked the page with a strip of cloth. Mu-hyeok stares at the location. North side of the mountain, exactly where Jang's tracks were heading. Jang isn't regrouping. He's going to the hidden temple. He's going to try to resurrect the ritual, and this time he won't need a binding stone. Because the contract is broken and the spirit is scattered, but the temple is where the original blood seal was made. If Jang spills the right blood in the right place, the spirit might have just enough power left to pull itself together. Not for centuries, not for decades, just for one night. One desperate, furious night of vengeance against the boy who shattered its prison. Mu-hyeok closes the book. He says they're going to the temple. Right now. Not tomorrow. Not after the siege break. Right now while Jang is wounded and slow and doesn't know they're tracking him. Elder Jin objects. Mu-hyeok can barely walk. His knee is a ruin, and his hands are shredded from digging a grave with his bare fingers. He hasn't slept in 2 days. He's in no condition to chase anyone. Mu-hyeok says he doesn't need to be the one fighting. He just needs to be the one who knows where to go. So-yeon stands up. She says she'll go. Jae-ho stands too. Hansol hesitates, then nods. 2 senior warriors volunteer. That's 5 fighters against 1 wounded old man. It should be enough. It has to be enough. Elder Jin doesn't like it, but he doesn't stop them. He just tells Mu-hyeok to come back alive. The clan can't afford to lose him. Mu-hyeok doesn't say what he's thinking, that the clan already lost him once. That he's been living on borrowed time since the moment he woke up in his childhood bed. That every breath he takes is one Gil-hyun should have taken instead. He just takes the spare blade Hansol offers him and straps it to his good leg. Seo-yeon packs a satchel with water and bandages and a coil of rope. Jae-ho grabs a bow and a quiver of arrows. They leave through the rear gate within the hour. 5 figures slipping into the tree line while the siege camp stirs in the distance and the morning fog rolls down from the peak. Mu-hyeok leads them north along the base of the mountain. He knows the general direction from the record's description, a narrow goat trail that branches off the main path about a mile past the waterfall. The same waterfall where the Oracle's cave is hidden. He doesn't stop to visit her. There's no time. The trail is steep and overgrown. Branches claw at their clothes, and loose stones skitter underfoot. Mu-hyeok's knee screams with every step, but he doesn't slow down. So-yeon watches him with something between concern and awe. He's moving on a leg that should be splinted and bedridden. He's moving like a man who made a promise to a dead friend and intends to keep it. The trail narrows to a ledge barely 2 feet wide. On one side, sheer rock. On the other, a drop of at least 300 feet into a ravine choked with mist. They move single file with their backs to the wall. The wind picks up halfway across. It tears at their clothes and carries the smell of old stone and wet earth, and something else. Something like burnt honey and copper. The same smell the poultice had before it failed. Mu-hyeok stops. He knows that smell. It's the scent of old magic, the residue of the contract seeping out of the mountain. They're close. The ledge widens into a natural platform about 50 feet across. At the back of the platform, carved directly into the cliff face, is a doorway. Not a natural cave. A doorway with squared pillars and a lintel stone covered in characters so old they predate the Hwaseon clan by 1,000 years. The temple. Fresh blood drips on the threshold. Drops of it, still wet, leading inside. Jang got here first, but not by much. Mu-hyeok signals for silence. They move into the temple in pairs. So-yeon and Jae-ho with bows drawn, the 2 senior warriors with swords out, Hansol staying close to Mu-hyeok. The interior is one vast chamber. The ceiling is lost in shadow. The walls are covered in carvings, the same ancient characters from the binding stone, spiraling inward toward a central altar. The altar is a slab of black obsidian, identical to the summit stone. But this one isn't shattered. It's intact, and it's glowing. Low, sickly violet light pulses from deep inside the stone like a heartbeat. Elder Jang kneels before it. His left shoulder is a mess of torn cloth and crusted blood where Mu-hyeok's knife hit him. His face is gray with exhaustion and blood loss, but his eyes are blazing. He's holding a knife to his own forearm. A line of blood drips onto the altar. The stone pulses brighter with every drop. Jang speaks without turning around. He says he knew Mu-hyeok would come. He says the boy is predictable, always rushing toward the fire instead of away from it. He says that's why Gil-hyun died. Mu-hyeok's hand tightens on his blade. Jang laughs. It's a wet, broken sound. He says the ritual doesn't need a binding stone, and it doesn't need a patriarch. It just needs blood. Enough blood from a descendant of Kang Dae-hyun to reopen the door. He doesn't have much left in his veins. But Mu-hyeok does. Jang turns. His eyes are no longer human. They're the same color as the altar, deep violet and hungry. He says the spirit is scattered, but it's not dead. It's listening, it's waiting, and it's very, very angry. The altar flares. Violet light floods the chamber, and the carvings on the walls begin to move. Not metaphors. The symbols are crawling across the stone like living things, rearranging themselves into a pattern Mu-hyeok doesn't recognize. The floor shakes. Jang raises his knife and brings it down toward his own chest. Not to kill himself, to finish the offering. Seo-yeon's arrow takes him in the wrist. The knife spins away across the stone floor. Jang screams. The light from the altar gutters like a candle in wind. But it doesn't go out, and the carvings keep moving. Something on the other side of the stone is already awake, and it's pushing through. The oracle's voice cuts through the chaos like a blade. She speaks directly into Mu-hyeok's mind through the shard still pressed against his chest. She tells him the altar isn't the real threat. The real threat is the original tomb. 200 years ago, Kang Dae-hyun didn't just sign a contract. He buried something at the base of this mountain. A physical anchor. A stone coffin containing the spirit's original bones. The thing it wore before it wore the Patriarch's face. Destroy the coffin, and the spirit loses its last tether to the mortal world. Without it, the altar is just a rock. Without it, Jang's blood ritual is a prayer to nothing. Mu-hyeok hears all of this in the space between heartbeats. The shard burns cold against his skin. The oracle says she can guide him. But the tomb is buried deep beneath the temple floor, and the only entrance is through the altar itself. Jang is still screaming on the ground with Seo-yeon's arrow through his wrist. The violet light from the obsidian slab pulses faster now. Something on the other side is pressing against reality like a fist against wet paper. The carvings on the walls are moving faster too. Mu-hyeok recognizes the pattern now. It's the same spiral the oracle showed him in the vision. The same shape the binding stone made at the summit before it shattered. He shouts to Seo-yeon, tells her to take Jae-ho and the warriors and find the tomb entrance. He gives her the shard. The oracle will guide them. Seo-yeon catches it with her bow hand. Her eyes go wide as the oracle's voice fills her head. She doesn't ask questions. She just nods and signals to Jae-ho. The two of them break left along the wall. The senior warriors follow with swords drawn. Han-sol stays with Mu-hyeok. He's trembling, but his blade is steady. Our boy limps toward the altar. His ruined knee screams with every step, but he's past caring. Jang watches him approach with those violet eyes. He laughs through the blood in his mouth. He says the boy is too late. The spirit already tasted his blood. The door is already open. Mu-hyeok doesn't answer. He walks past Jang and puts his hand on the obsidian slab. The stone is cold. Wrong kind of cold. The kind that doesn't come from temperature. The kind that seeps into your bones and tells your body it's already dead. The violet light surges up his arm. It crawls across his skin like searching fingers. And then it stops. The light recoils. The stone shudders. Something inside it recognizes him. This is the descendant of Kang Dae-hyun, who broke the contract. This is the one who spoke the true name at the summit. This is the boy who shattered the binding stone and scattered the spirit across the mountain. The altar doesn't want his blood. It wants him gone. Han-sol shouts a warning. More puppets are coming. They stumble out of the shadows at the edges of the chamber. Not the wooden training constructs from the shrine. These are different. These are made of stone and root, and the same violet light that pulses in the altar. They move like broken puppets on tangled strings. 5 of them. Han-sol steps in front of Mu-hyeok. He says he can hold them. He says it like he believes it. The kid's got guts. Mu-hyeok draws the spare blade from his leg. His hand remembers Gil-hyun's lesson. Every gap is an opening. He doesn't have Gil-hyun's strength or speed, but he has his eyes now. He sees the puppets the way Gil-hyun saw opponents, reading the twitch before the strike, reading the weight shift before the lunge. The first puppet swings a stone arm at his head. He ducks under it and drives his blade into the joint where stone meets root. The puppet staggers. He kicks it backward into 2 others. They collapse in a tangle of grinding rock. Han-sol engages the left flank. He's not strong enough to break them, but he's fast. He darts between their swings like a sparrow through falling branches. The senior warriors move to support him. Blades flash in the violet gloom. Jang is still on the ground. He's laughing harder now. The blood from his wrist is pooling on the stone floor. It's flowing toward the altar. Not dripping, flowing. Like the stone is pulling it. Jang says the ritual doesn't need him anymore. He says the blood only needed to open the door. Now the spirit will pull itself through, one piece at a time. From every crack in the mountain, from every shadow the binding stone left behind. He says it will remember Kang Mu-hyeok. It will remember the name that shattered it. And it will be very creative with its revenge. Mu-hyeok crushes a puppet's head with the pommel of his blade. Stone fragments spray across the floor. He limps to Jang and grabs the old man by the collar. The arrow is still through his wrist. The wound is still bleeding. Jang's face is gray as winter sky. Mu-hyeok asks where the tomb entrance is. Jang grins. His teeth are stained violet now. He says the tomb is under the altar. He says it's been there for 200 years. He says Kang Dae-hyun buried it himself, and the only way to reach it is through the stone. Mu-hyeok looks at the obsidian slab. The surface is rippling now, like water struck by a dropped pebble. The violet light is so bright it hurts to look at. Something is coming through. Jang's voice drops to a whisper. He says the boy can't stop it. He says the spirit was always going to return. The contract was only a cage. The cage is broken. The beast remembers freedom. And it remembers who took that freedom away. Mu-hyeok drops him. He turns to the altar. He raises his blade. And he brings it down on the obsidian slab with every ounce of strength he has left. The blade shatters on impact. The hilt spins out of his hand and clatters across the floor. The altar is untouched. Not a scratch. Not a crack. Jang laughs so hard he chokes on his own blood. He says the stone was forged by the spirit itself. No mortal blade can break it. No mortal strength can crack it. The only thing that can open it is the blood of the bloodline. And the only thing that can destroy it is the same. Mu-hyeok understands. The binding stone at the summit was broken by speaking the true name. This stone needs something different. It needs a sacrifice. The same kind of sacrifice Kang Dae-hyun made 200 years ago. Not blood, a soul. Jang sees the understanding in his eyes. He says that's the beautiful thing about the ritual. It doesn't need Mu-hyeok to die. It just needs him to give up, to stop fighting, to let the spirit take what it wants. Because the spirit feeds on more than blood. It feeds on despair, on broken will. On the moment a man realizes he's lost everything and stops trying. That's the real sacrifice. That's what Kang Dae-hyun gave it. Not his life, his hope. Mu-hyeok looks at Jang. Looks at the puppets still swarming Hansol and the warriors. Looks at the altar pulsing with hungry light. He thinks about Gil-hyun. About the old watchtower and the knife and the pine tree. About a promise he made to a dead friend. He says Jang is wrong. He says the old man has been wrong about everything since the day he chose the spirit over his clan. He says Kang Mu-hyeok doesn't break. He doesn't stop. He doesn't give up hope. Because hope isn't something you give. It's something you choose. Every single day. Every single fight. Even when you're crawling up a mountain with a broken knee and a dead friend's name in your throat. Especially then. The shard blazes in Seo-yeon's hand across the chamber. She's found something. A seam in the wall. A hidden passage behind the spiral carvings. The oracle is guiding her deeper. Mu-hyeok sees her disappear into the darkness, with Jae-ho behind her. The puppets are everywhere now. Stone hands reaching. Root fingers grasping. Hansol takes a hit to the shoulder and goes down. One of the senior warriors covers him. The other is bleeding from a gash across his ribs. They can't hold much longer. Mu-hyeok makes a decision. He can't break the altar. He can't fight the spirit with a shattered blade and a ruined knee. But he can buy Seo-yeon time. He can keep the spirit focused on him. He can be the target. He turns to the altar and spreads his arms. He says the spirit knows him. It knows his name. It knows what he did at the summit. He says, if it wants him, it can come take him. The violet light explodes. A wave of pressure blasts through the chamber. The puppets freeze. The carvings stop moving. The altar splits open like a flower blooming in fast motion. And something rises out of it. Not the Patriarch, not the 10-foot-tall mass of shadow and root from the shrine. Something older, something that hasn't worn a human face in 200 years. A shape made of darkness and bone, and the memory of a mountain. It has no eyes. It has no mouth. But it speaks anyway. The grinding voice of stone on stone, in the whisper of wind through dead trees, it speaks Kang Mu-hyeok's name like a curse. Seo-yeon's shout echoes from deep below the temple floor. She's found the tomb. The spirit hears it. The shape turns toward the sound. Mu-hyeok throws himself forward. He grabs the first thing his hand finds, a chunk of shattered puppet. He hurls it at the spirit's face. The stone passes through the darkness and clatters on the far wall. But the spirit turns back to him. He has its attention. He tells it to look at him. He tells it that he's the one who broke the contract. He's the one who spoke the name. He's the one who scattered it across the mountain. And he'll be the one who sends it back. The spirit lunges. Darkness swallows Mu-hyeok whole. He can't see. He can't hear. He's floating in a void colder than the altar stone. But he can still feel. He can feel the shard burning in So-yeon's hand somewhere below him. He can feel the oracle's voice threading through the darkness like a lifeline. She tells him to hold on. She tells him the tomb is ahead. She tells him So-yeon is almost there. So-yeon is almost there. The darkness doesn't just swallow him, it crushes him. No up, no down, no ground under his ruined knee. Just cold. The kind of cold that isn't temperature, it's absence. And then the voice comes. Not words, older than words. A grinding that vibrates inside his bones like the mountain itself is speaking through his marrow. It asks him why he fights. It asks him what he thinks he's saving. It reminds him that Gil-hyun is dead, that the compound is surrounded, that his sister has already been taken once and will be taken again. It shows him images, not visions, memories. His mother's funeral, his father's cold stare. The moment Mang Do-jun's blade punched through his chest in the original timeline. Every failure, every loss, every time he wasn't strong enough. The spirit isn't attacking his body. It's attacking his will. It's feeding, and it's been doing this for 200 years. Every Kang who ever despaired fed it. Every disciple who ever gave up fed it. Every elder who chose the easy path instead of the hard one. Elder Jang fed it for decades without even knowing. Mu-hyeok feels his grip slipping, not on anything physical, on himself. On the thing that made him crawl up a mountain with a broken knee. On the thing that made him choose hope when Jang offered him despair. The spirit shows him one more image. Seo-yeon, down in the dark below the temple floor, the shard burning in her hand. Jae-ho behind her, the passage narrowing, the walls closing in. And ahead of her, in a chamber carved from living rock, a stone coffin. It's cracked. The spirit shows him what's inside. Bones, not human. Something older. Something that predates the mountain. Something that was buried here before Kang Dae-hyun ever made his deal. And the bones are moving, not rising, not assembling, just vibrating, humming, singing in a frequency that makes the stone walls bleed violet light. Seo-yeon steps toward the coffin. The oracle's voice cuts through the dark. She's in his head, not the shard, directly in his mind. She tells him the spirit is trying to break him because it's afraid. It's pulling every thread of despair it can find. It's showing him the worst timeline because it needs him to give up. Right now. In this moment. Because if he gives up, the spirit gets what it wants. A vessel. Not Jang. Not the altar. Him. Kang Mu-hyeok. The descendant who broke the contract. The one who spoke the true name. The one who scattered it across the mountain. It wants him. And it can't take him unless he surrenders. That's the rule. The ancient rule. The one Kang Dae-hyun wrote into the contract 200 years ago. The spirit can't possess a descendant. It can only accept one who offers himself freely. Elder Jang volunteered. But Jang isn't a descendant. His blood opened the door, but his soul isn't bright enough. He's not what the spirit really wants. Mu-hyeok is. The oracle tells him to hold on. So-yeon is almost at the coffin. She just needs to touch it. The shard will do the rest. But the spirit shows him what happens next. So-yeon reaching out, her hand touching the stone. The shard flaring white-hot. And then her scream. Because the coffin doesn't just contain the spirit's bones. It contains the original bargain. The one Kang Dae-hyun made. The one written in blood and bone. And the memory of a desperate man who wanted to save his clan. And the price of breaking it isn't nothing. Someone has to pay, Mu-hyeok understands. The oracle knew. She's been guiding Seo-yeon toward a sacrifice she never agreed to make. He screams into the void. He tells the oracle to stop. He tells her to pull Seo-yeon back. The oracle doesn't answer. The spirit laughs. Not in sound, in sensation. A vibration that feels like triumph. It shows him Seo-yeon's hand descending toward the coffin lid. Her fingers inches from the stone. And Mu-hyeok makes a choice. Not the choice the spirit wants. Not surrender. He reaches into the darkness with everything he has left. Every memory, every failure, every scar. He doesn't push them away. He grabs them. He pulls them close. He tells the spirit that it's right. Gil-hyun is dead. His knee is ruined. His clan is surrounded. His sister has been hunted. He's failed more times than he can count. He's going to fail again. And none of it matters. Because despair isn't the absence of hope. It's the choice to stop. And Kang Mu-hyeok doesn't stop. He didn't stop on the mountain. He didn't stop at the watchtower. He didn't stop when Jang put a knife to his sister's throat. He didn't stop when the altar opened and the darkness swallowed him whole. He won't stop now. The void shudders. For the first time in 200 years, the mountain spirit encounters something it cannot digest, a will it cannot break, a hope it cannot eat. And hope is poison to it, literally. The darkness around Mu-hyeok starts to crack. Fissures of light. Not violet. Not the sick glow of the altar.
White light.
Clean light. The same light that erupted from the binding stone when he spoke the Patriarch's true name. The spirit recoils. It howls.
Not in anger, in pain.
Mu-hyeok's refusal is burning it from the inside. Every brilliant, stubborn strand of hope is like a brand pressed into shadow.
The spirit can't hold him.
It can't feed on him. He's too bright, too alive, too unwilling to break. It has to let him go. The darkness spits him out. He slams back into his body on the temple floor. The impact knocks the air out of his lungs. His knee screams. His hands are shaking. He's drenched in sweat. He's still alive. The spirit is still there. A shape of darkness and bone and fury. But it's smaller now, diminished.
Mu-hyeok's hope didn't just hurt it.
It burned away something essential. A piece of the spirit's power that it can't get back.
The violet light in the chamber flickers.
The puppets stumble. The carvings on the wall stop moving. For one breath, everything is still. Then the spirit lunges again. Not at Mu-hyeok. At the split altar. At the opening that leads down into the earth. Toward the tomb. Towards Seo-yeon. It's desperate now. It's racing to stop her. Mu-hyeok can't stand. His knee won't hold. He can barely breathe. He's got no weapon, no plan, nothing but a dead friend's promise and 200 years of stubborn Kang blood. He crawls. Not toward the altar, toward the hidden passage, toward the crack in the wall where Seo-yeon disappeared. He drags himself across the stone floor with his hands and his one good leg. The puppets are still frozen. Han-sol is down. The warriors are barely standing. No one can help him. He reaches the passage. It's narrow, barely wide enough for his shoulders. The walls are wet and cold, and carved with spiral patterns that spiral down into darkness. The shard's light is visible below. A pinprick of violet in the black. He calls Seo-yeon's name. She doesn't answer. He calls Jae-ho's name. Nothing.
The spirit is ahead of him.
He can feel it. A pressure in the air. A wrongness that makes his teeth ache. It's faster than he is. It's already reaching the tomb. He keeps crawling, hand over hand, inch by inch. The passage slopes downward. The stone is slick with condensation. His knee bangs against the wall, and he nearly blacks out from the pain. He doesn't stop. He thinks about Gil-hyun. About what Gil-hyeon told him at the watchtower. About the promise he made under the pine tree. About the flat stone marker and the words scratched into it. Friend. Warrior. Brother who chose to stay. Gil-hyun chose to stay. Chose to fight. Chose to die so Mu-hyeok could keep going. Mu-hyeok isn't going to waste it. The passage opens into a chamber. Not the tomb. A landing. A wide shelf of rock above the real tomb below. He can see it. The stone coffin. The bones inside. So-yeon standing in front of it with her hand outstretched. Jae-ho behind her, sword drawn, facing the darkness. The spirit is there. It's between Seo-yeon and the coffin. A mass of shadow and bone and ancient fury. Smaller than before. Wounded. But still deadly. Still a mountain spirit. Still the thing that wore Kang Dae-hyun's face for 200 years. It speaks. Not to Mu-hyeok, to So-yeon. It asks her if she knows what the oracle didn't tell her. If she knows what happens when the coffin is destroyed. If she's ready to pay the price. Seo-yeon doesn't lower her hand. She asks what price. The spirit tells her. The original bargain. The one Kang Dae-hyun made. The one that bound the spirit to the mountain and the clan to the spirit. It wasn't just a contract. It was a trade. Protection in exchange for a vessel. Every generation produces one descendant with a bright soul. And when the spirit calls, that descendant answers. That's what happened to Kang Dae-hyun's daughter. The one no record mentions. The one erased from the clan's history. She was the first vessel, first price. And now the contract is broken. The cage is open. The spirit is free. But the price is still owed. If the coffin is destroyed, the spirit dies. But someone still has to pay. A descendant, a bright soul, a willing sacrifice. Seo-yeon asks if that's what the oracle was planning all along. The spirit says yes. Mu-hyeok drags himself to the edge of the shelf. He's above them, looking down. His voice is wrecked, but it carries. He says the spirit is lying. It's always lied. It lied to Kang Dae-hyun. It lied to Elder Jang. It's lying now because it's afraid. The price was already paid. At the summit, when the binding stone shattered, when the contract broke, the spirit just doesn't want to admit it's dying. The spirit turns toward him. The darkness condenses. For 1 second it looks almost human, almost like the Patriarch, almost like the founder whose face it wore. And then, So-yeon's hand touches the coffin. So-yeon's hand meets the coffin. The moment her skin touches that ancient stone, the whole chamber goes still. A single violent pulse erupts from the cracks in the bone-filled box. Then another. And another. It's like a heartbeat. The spirit shrieks. Not a roar, a high, thin sound that cracks the carvings on the walls. Our boy is sprawled on the shelf above, gasping, every nerve in his ruined knee screaming at him. He sees the darkness around the spirit shudder. That mountain-sized monster of shadow and fury is shrinking. Its form flickers between the Patriarch's face and something far older and far more terrified. Mu-hyeok knows exactly what to do now. Not because the oracle told him, because he remembers. He remembers the 48th vision. He remembers Gil-hyeon's lesson about weak points. He remembers everything the old bastard taught him about reading a fighter's body. So he drags himself forward until his hands grip the edge of the stone shelf. He looks down at the thing that stole his family's blood for 2 centuries. And he laughs. Not a happy laugh. A dry, broken, "You're done, you bastard" laugh. Then he calls down to the spirit. He asks if it even knows what happened to Kang Dae-hyun's daughter. The spirit freezes. It turns its flickering face toward him. Mu-hyeok doesn't stop. He says the founder buried that girl under this mountain. Buried her with his own hands. She wasn't a willing sacrifice. She was a child. And after she died, Kang Dae-hyun spent the rest of his life trying to break the deal he made. Every record they burned, every ancestor they erased, it was all to hide his shame. The spirit screams at him to be silent. Our boy knows he's got it now. The Patriarch, or the thing wearing his face, it isn't just a mountain spirit. It's a parasite that feeds on guilt, and the founder's guilt is the one thing it can't digest. Mu-hyeok drags himself off the shelf. He falls 8 feet and lands hard on the stone floor. His knee collapses under him. He doesn't care. He crawls toward the coffin. Jae-ho tries to help him, but Mu-hyeok waves him off. He's got one shot, one move. He pulls the oldest record from inside his tunic. That massive leather-bound book crumbles at the corners. The pages inside are so old, they barely hold ink, but the words are still there. The original contract, the names, the blood seal. He slams the book onto the coffin lid. The spirit howls. Its shadowy form convulses. Mu-hyeok presses his hand over the cover and recites the first line of the compact that bound them all. The spirit's face twists through a dozen expressions. Rage, terror, grief. For one heartbeat, it's not the Patriarch at all. It's a terrified old spirit, seeing its cage close forever. That's the critical blow. Not a sword, not a punch. Just an ancestor's shame and a dead man's signature on a piece of crumbling paper. The spirit's darkness peels away in strips. It shrieks something about the price. Mu-hyeok tells it the price was paid already. At the summit. When the stone shattered. When the contract broke. The spirit just refuses to admit it's already dead. And then a blade slides into the chamber from the shadow behind him. Not the spirit, not a puppet. Mang Do-jun, the Raider Warlord. He's got that notched blade raised high, his eyes locked on Mu-hyeok's back. Same angle as the death blow in the first life. Same arc, same timing. Our boy knew he'd come. He's been counting on it. He doesn't even turn around. He just twists sideways, slides one hand off the record, and lets Mang Do-jun's sword whistle past his ribs. It misses by an inch. Blade strikes the book. And the book, that ancient, fragile, impossible book, absorbs every ounce of momentum. The steel groans. The pages don't tear. Mang Do-jun's eyes go wide. He sees the violet light under Mu-hyeok's palm and realizes he just made a very big mistake. Mu-hyeok grins at him. He thanks the warlord for sealing the contract. Because the record needed one more thing to finish the seal, a drop of blood from outside the bloodline. Mang Do-jun's blade cut his own hand on the cover. A single bead of crimson drops onto the page. The character for end flares white-hot. The coffin shudders. The spirit's scream tears through the temple like a physical thing. Violet light erupts from every crack in the stone. The bones inside the coffin turn to ash. Darkness that was the Patriarch collapses inward, folding like a dying star. Then nothing. Silence. Darkness. The light is gone. Mu-hyeok slumps against the coffin, his hand still pressed to the book. He feels it coming. The price. He knew from the moment he opened that record's last page that he'd have to give up something. Not blood. Not his life. His future. Every memory of the original timeline, the massacre, the war, the years wandering a dead continent, Mang Do-jun's blade in his chest. Gil Hyun's 47 defeats, the Oracle's lessons, the taste of his own failure on the day his clan burned. All of it. One by one, the visions peel away like pages tearing. He sees Gil Hyun's face in the training yard. It dissolves. He sees Seo-yeon's bow in the rain of the first invasion. It fades. He sees the face of the man who killed his sister the first time. It blurs and vanishes. He sees his sister alive. That one stays for a moment longer. Then it goes too. But he doesn't need the memory because she's here. She's alive. His hand slips from the book. His head drops. The last thing he sees before he blacks out is the oldest record crumbling to dust on the coffin lid. And the coffin lid is dark, cold, dead. The Patriarch is gone forever. Mang Do-jun snarls and raises his sword again. But the cavern is shaking. Stones fall from the ceiling. The temple can't hold. He runs. Disappears into the tunnel he crawled through. Seo-yeon grabs Mu-hyeok under the arms. Jae-ho lifts his legs. They haul him through the narrow passage while the temple collapses behind them. By the time they reach the shrine above, Han-sol is on his feet, bleeding from his shoulder but alive. The puppets are nothing but shattered stone and dead root. The altar is a pile of rubble. They stagger out into the cold dawn air. The mountain is still. The siege camp below is in chaos. Without the spirit's power, Mang Do-jun's blood demon arts are weaker. His soldiers feel it. They're already breaking. By the time the Hwasan warriors charge down the mountain, what's left of the raider army scatters into the forest. Elder Jin leads the final push at the eastern wall. Ha-jun's archers pin the stragglers in the ravine. By midday, it's over. 500 raiders reduced to a few dozen fleeing shadows. Mang Do-jun vanishes into the wilderness. No one sees him die. No one sees him escape. But he doesn't come back. The siege is lifted. The compound still stands. And our boy? He wakes up 3 days later in the clan's medical hall. His knee is wrapped in clean bandages. His sister is asleep in a chair beside his bed. So-yeon stands by the door with a bowl of broth and a look that says she's been waiting for him to open his eyes. He tries to remember how he got here. He knows there was a temple. He knows there was a fight. He knows Gil Hyun is dead, and Elder Jang is somewhere out there with an arrow wound and a broken dream. But the details, the future he carried for months, the deaths he saw, the battles he lost, they're gone. Wiped clean. The price is paid. And the first thing he says, his voice rough as gravel, is that he's hungry. Soo-yeon wakes up crying. She hugs him so hard he nearly blacks out again. Han-sol stumbles in with a grin and a bandaged arm. Jae-ho bows from the doorway. The council meets that evening. Elder Jin tells Mu-hyeok that the clan owes him a debt they can never repay. Our boy doesn't want repayment. He just wants his family safe. He walks out onto the training yard under moonlight. His knee still aches, but he can walk. Seo-yeon follows him. She asks what he's going to do now. He doesn't know. He can't remember the future. But he looks at the compound walls, at the eastern gate he doused in oil, at the culvert he collapsed, at the tower where he fought Elder Jang, and he knows he built this safety with his own hands. Not because he saw it coming, because he chose to. Every step. The Oracle's cave is empty now. The binding stone is broken. The old records are dust. But the clan is still here. The Hwasan name is still standing. And Mu-hyeok, the prodigal waste who wasn't supposed to be anything, is the one who kept it alive. He doesn't remember the man he was at 30. He doesn't remember dying. He doesn't remember the 48th vision. But deep in his bones, the muscle memory remains. Gil Hyun's lessons live in his reflexes. Seo-yeon's loyalty burns in his chest. So when a messenger arrives 3 days later with a reply from one of those neighboring clans, a real reply, not a bluff, Mu-hyeok reads it and smiles. The clan isn't alone anymore. The mountain is quiet. The Patriarch is gone. And whatever comes next, Kang Mu-hyeok is ready.